Hello and welcome. Kerry here from Healing Humanity, the Power of a Proper Human Diet. And I am thankful, grateful, blessed to have Dr. Tony Hampton, Adam from Carnivore Today, Alia Wells. We've got some of the other good doctors joining us as well later in the call. Dr. Barry will be joining us, Dr. Westman, Dr. Nelson, who everyone has to meet, a good friend of mine. The purpose of today's event, I'm excited for this, is to spread awareness about the ADS, American Diabetes Society. Also to spread awareness that diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is reversible. It's not a life sentence. You don't have to lose your life or lose limbs because of it. And we've got several incredible stories of healing that we're going to share throughout the night. We're going to really try to inspire you. That's what we're trying to do with this documentary. But we've got several short stories of incredible healing. A lot of people that did it to heal type 2 diabetes, but then they figured out, wow, I healed all of these other things I wasn't even anticipating healing. So we're excited to share those with you. Later on in the event, we have a doctor's roundtable with Dr. Barry, Dr. Westman, and Dr. Hampton, and Dr. Nelson. And then we'll have a Q&A after that. But sprinkled in between, we're going to have several stories of individuals healing. The main goal for this is to spread awareness for the American Diabetes Society and to raise funds for it as well. I've personally donated. I've personally shouted it out, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this. I believe if we want to heal humanity, if we want to change the world, if we want to get the word out, we have to do it as individuals. It has to be a grassroots effort. So we're really excited for all of that. So without further ado, we're going to start out with a presentation, but maybe if we could go around quick and just do some introductions, maybe starting with you, Adam.
Hey, everybody. Adam with Carnivore Today and Healing Humanity, the Power of a Proper Human Diet. I'm so glad that everybody's here. I appreciate everyone for stopping by and watching, and hopefully you learned something from these wonderful doctors and potentially, improve your health or improve the health of your loved ones. So thank you for that. Just a little bit of backstory on me. I started Carnivore to heal an autoimmune condition, and it ended up actually healing like 30 other things for me: depression, anxiety, a traumatic brain injury from 6 years prior to starting Carnivore that essentially I was told I needed to live with for the rest of my life. So that's why I'm so passionate about the Carnivore Diet, and I am so appreciative to be here with Kerry, Dr. Hampton, Dr. Barry, Dr. Westman, Alia, and the rest of everybody else that you're going to see tonight.
Thanks, Adam. Alia.
Hi. Okay. So, I started the Carnivore Diet March 2023. Wow, it was a long time ago. And I started it with the expectation to lose like 90 pounds. And I was completely pleasantly surprised when within 3 days, all of my gut issues resolved. I started sleeping again after it felt like years of insomnia after having kids. And let's see, just so much random anxiety from not eating correctly and not sleeping. And I didn't realize that the terrible foods that we're eating could actually make you feel so terrible. And so I felt like a normal human being again. Like it felt like within days. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to spread the word about this. We have to tell people, because the crap that we're eating, there's so much mental health issues. So many people are on these psychiatric medications when they actually don't need to be. And so I just feel very like this is my passion and my purpose to do this and help spread the word about this, because I want people to feel better. I want them to feel like how I felt. I loved, as a 39-year-old, when I started the Carnivore Diet, I was at the point in my life, well, I'm old. I'm old. And you're just cynical now, and I'm no longer optimistic. I'm just pessimistic. And to just in my mind think, oh, I guess this is the way this is when you get old, but it's not the way it is, and it's not normal. And just to be my happy, cheerful self again was mind blowing, from just changing my diet, just changing the horrible food I was eating. And so, including vegetables, by the way, I'm going to just toss that in there, including vegetables. I do like pickles, but anyways, so that's why I continue to talk about this. I started my channel to document my story. And then I was like, I need to spread other people's stories and what happened to other people, because it's just so life-changing. So that's why I'm doing this with everybody here. And I want to say, I hope that tonight, when you hear these stories from individuals that reverse their type 2 diabetes, you feel inspired to help Dr. Hampton Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Eric Westman with the Diabetes Society. That's why we want to talk about this to hopefully raise some funds. And I want to say the second that I heard about this, I'm like, oh man, I want to do a fundraiser for this so badly. And I actually sent Dr. Berry a DM in the PhD group. And so, and I think at the same time, simultaneously, like Kerry had that thought and so did Adam. Because here we are.
Here we are. Such an important thing.
So I'm just saying, if you feel inspired, please feel free to donate. And I'll be maybe not here on the screen the whole time, but I'll be around and chatting it up with everybody. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alia. And if you're interested in donating to the ADS, there's a link in the description below. Dr. Tony Hampton, a man who's dedicated his life to healing. If you could, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you to all of you guys. I'm so excited because this is about restoring hope. And even as I chatted with my teammates here before we got started, I just left a pool party, and pretty much everybody at the pool party who have plenty of resources were sharing the struggles that they have with health, and some of that conversation was around diabetes, and it shocks and amazes me how much of what we talk about tonight is not known by most people. No matter what your education, no matter what your resources, people don't know. So I'm a family doctor, obesity doctor in Chicago on the South Side, and I've been probably in the low carb space for probably around 12 years. Been carnivore for a little under 2 years. And it really took the carnivore diet to really resolve my irritable bowel problem. The problem has gone away for the most part, as long as I'm not having too many indulgence days. And I can't imagine going back. So again, this is not about carnivore today, but for those who are carnivore curious, there's a reason why we're carnivore. There's a reason why the other doctors in this discussion are pretty much carnivore. It's because it works. So rather it's low carb, keto, or carnivore, that is the way you resolve diabetes. It's not with pills and having a continuous glucose monitor in your arm. It's about eating the foods that won't spike your sugar. So I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of what I know and the discussion that follows.
Wonderful. Thank you. I guess just quickly about myself, my name's Kerry. I'm doing a documentary, Healing Humanity, the Power of a Proper Human Diet, where we're sharing just incredible stories of healing when people return to a natural, proper human diet, healing from type 2 diabetes, obesity, depression, anxiety, fertility issues, autoimmune disorders, some things that are just, quite frankly, unbelievable. And so I'm very passionate about that. And that's kind of the idea behind the theme of this event tonight, is to share real stories from individuals that have healed themselves to help inspire you, to help inspire others out there. And we got some really good ones for you. I'm excited for that. And then we're blessed to have these good doctors on. Proper Human Diet for me was a carnivore diet. It's changed my life forever. I overcame so many health issues. It's why I'm so passionate about this. And I don't think I ever would have started if it wasn't for good doctors like Dr. Tony Hampton, Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Westman, Dr. Baker, Dr. Chafee, all of these guys. I really don't know that I would have started without the reassurance of these good doctors and the healing I'm seeing. It's so important that we continue to elevate the voices of these good doctors, because the healing that I'm seeing and witnessing out there doing this documentary is absolutely incredible. And so thank you so much, Dr. Hampton, for coming on here and for all of the work you do. There's links in the description below for Dr. Hampton's YouTube channel. I absolutely love your YouTube channel. One thing that Dr. Hampton's been doing recently, just as a quick side note, you've been posting little interviews with patients in the clinic. And man, it puts a huge smile on my face. Actually healing people. What is that like, Dr. Hampton, when you have a patient, you're able to get them off their medication?
It's first of all, again, when you go from a disease manager to a person who actually helps people heal, it changes the entire clinical experience. Everybody's excited. The medical assistants are excited. The patient's excited, and they can't wait to share their success, whether it's their weight loss, whether it's that they're getting off their blood pressure medicines or their diabetes medicines, whether they're arthritis is better, rather they have mental clarity. So when you go to work and you see anywhere from 20 to 30 patients a day, and you have at least, 1 to 5 testimonials almost every day, it changes everything. So I have never experienced that in my previous life before I started low carb teaching. And you really feel like, okay, now I'm serving my purpose. And I think every doctor deserves an opportunity to feel that emotion of, man, I'm actually deprescribing medicines instead of adding more. People, they lift you up. And, my love language is words of affirmation, where I get a lot of that because people come to me and say, doctor, you have changed my life. And all I did was to give them the right information. And I became a coach, and I coached them until they were ready. Some people take, 1 visit, some people take 5, 6 years, but ultimately most people come around and say, I'm going to try that crazy diet, and that crazy diet works. So it's been wonderful. It's a great question. And I am overjoyed, which is why I love being here with you guys today.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right. So Alia, you're going to check back in with us in a little bit, right?
Yeah, I'm going to hop out, but thank you so much for having me. I will be in all the chats though. Don't
Awesome.
y'all worry.
Thanks, Alia. Speaking of good doctors, we have Dr. Eric Westman joining us. Hello, Dr. Westman. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Sound great.
Thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind giving us a little introduction? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, sure. So I'm at Duke University. I'm an associate professor of medicine in the Department of Medicine. It's my academic affiliation, but I went out to be especially trained in obesity medicine as Dr. Hampton. And so I've been working with weight loss and diabetes reversal for over 20 years now. And my research contribution, I suppose the way to say it, is that we started studying the low carb keto diet 25 years ago now. So we didn't make it up. But we published papers to give credibility to, what is so obvious to so many people, that just eating great food can be so healthy. But, it's hard to convince doctors without randomized trials and research. And now over the last 20 years, there have been studies all over the world showing lowering the carbohydrate and proper human diet, the carnivore diet, are subtypes of low carb diets, can be very therapeutic for reversing all of these problems, but it also preventative. So it's my pleasure to be here to share the research and also the clinical practice that I have day to day, reversing diabetes and obesity, metabolic syndrome, and actually lots of other diseases that doctors can't fix. So that's why I'm staying at a university, so that I can be sent problems that are difficult and other doctors can't fix with medicine. And often just changing the food when has a doctor asked you about food? Typically they don't ask what you eat. It's kind of crazy. So my pleasure to be here, and it's great to meet you in person. I have reacted to your videos and following the documentary, and then the American Diabetes Society. I'm so thrilled to be part of a grassroots organization that I was looking at the American Diabetes Association, and they never said anything about reversing diabetes. In fact, in the first couple paragraphs, they're going automatically to drugs. No worries, don't worry, you have diabetes, you can manage it with drugs. And now on TV, when I see these ads, it's like remember the chalkboard, like the fingernails on the chalkboard, manage diabetes. No. So anyway, it's thrilling for me to be part of all of this, because I got into medicine to want to help people get better, not just manage problems.
That's incredible. Well, we're honored to have you on, Dr. Westman. I can't thank you enough. Please feel free to jump in at any time, but we were going to start a presentation that Dr. Hampton's put together. So if we could, maybe we could put that on the screen now.
All right, so I will do that. And while I'm doing it, I just want to let everybody know that I have 2 heroes with me today, maybe even 3, because Kerry is such an inspiration himself. But also, Dr. Barry is my inspiration for even thinking about, spreading this message broadly. And Dr. Eric Westman is a virtual mentor, whether he knows it or not. So he is instrumental in how I think about medicine, because he's evidence-based. And when you're in a large health system, I'm with Advocate Health, you have to think about research, and you have to be able to prove that to your colleagues. So thank you for the opportunity. I assume you can see the screen.
There we go. Yep, there we go.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to get started. And the goal today is to restore hope. And for those who are new to this ideal of reversing diabetes, whether you're a clinician or a person who receives care from a clinician, if you hadn't heard that, you need to know that that's true. And it's also true that type 1 diabetes, which is what my wife have, can be put into tight control. You can have a normal A1C if you include low carb, keto, or carnivore. So let's get started and talk about what we're going to focus on today. And obviously, we want you to understand why reducing carbs is important, the potential as a therapeutic tool for low carb, and obviously, how do I do that? And I'm going to share that in a resource that you may want to share with your clinician, because they don't necessarily have that information in front of them. And I just put David Sackett's his comments in front of us. Half of what you've learned in medical school will be shown to be either dead wrong or out of date within 5 years. Now, I've been a doctor on the front lines for 29 years, so nothing I learned in medical school is probably true anymore. And that's why it's important that we continue to learn. So I just want to encourage my clinicians out there to learn. And as a viewer of this presentation, you're learning, and never hold on to things that are old, that are not working. Let's look towards the future. So let's briefly talk about low carb versus low fat. I know we live in a world where low fat receives a lot of attention, but we want to compare those two. And as you know, low carb diets focuses on reducing carbs. And if you're lucky, and if you're fortunate, you'll be in ketosis. And when you do that with a higher fat diet, moderate protein, what happens is you're burning fat for fuel. That's compared to a low fat diet, which is all about reducing the fat in your diet. But if you reduce fat, you're only left with protein and carbs, and that tends to lead to a higher carb consumption. And they typically focus on lean protein. So the question is, which one of those diets is going to be better for you? The good news is that if you deviate from the standard American diet, you're probably going to be fine. But this graph here kind of makes it a little clear. If you assume that a diabetes diagnosis has something to do with raising your blood sugar, and you're concerned about that, well, guess what? The macronutrient that is the most effective at raising your blood sugar and also your insulin levels is the carbs. It's very obvious from this graph. And as you can see, protein a little bit and not so much with the fat. So I think this is a very important image. And it's not logical in my mind to have a diet that only has carbs when you can consider this graph. Now, let's look at some research. Now, we have to be efficient tonight, so I'm just showing a slide from the Public Health Collaborative, pretty independent organization. And because there's an association between diabetes and obesity, I thought it was important that you see this graph. Now, what's important to know is that observational studies where you look at data in a computer, or you look at maybe a survey, a food frequency questionnaire sent to your home, asking you how many steaks you ate in 2023, it's going to be hard to know that number. So those types of observational studies are not to be trusted if we have randomized controlled trials. And as you can see, the low carb diet, when it comes to significant greater weight loss, was basically 39 to 0 compared to low fat. And in English, what that means is that there are 0 low fat diets that were done properly with a randomized controlled trial that gave significantly greater weight loss. So you need to hear that out loud, because if you're trying to lose weight to help with your type 2 diabetes, that's an important fact. Here's something that I recently shared on YouTube, which is that the U.S. News and World Report has ranked keto as the #1 diet for fast weight loss. The #1 diet for fast weight loss. So although they tend to love Mediterranean overall, you can't deny the effectiveness of a keto diet. And so the acceptance of the keto diet is starting to gain a little momentum based on the work we're doing, based on the work you're doing as a person who's consuming it and sharing with your friends and family. And it's really exciting to know that at least for this particular category, U.S. News has suggested this is the best diet. So some of the concerns, I think, in the past that have led to the U.S. News and other organizations being fearful of a low carb or keto diet, and certainly carnivore, is this fear of saturated fat. And that's probably why they still have the Mediterranean ranked higher for overall health. But the thing is, the Journal of the American College of Cardiology has put out a statement which basically says there is no association when you look at quality studies with saturated fat and heart disease. And shockingly, they had enough gall to say that not only is it not harmful for heart disease, but it's protective against stroke. I could only imagine what your doctor would say, who's not aware of this, if you said, I'm eating saturated fat to reduce my risk for stroke. But that's their statement. So these organizations that are fearing keto for that reason should not fear it anymore. But I have even more good news, which is that the American Diabetes Association now endorses low carb and very low carb. And their former CEO, Tracy Brown, was able to get off her medicines using a low carb diet. And I'm sure that had a little to do with them moving in the direction of endorsing that diet. The American College of Endocrinology, as you know, endocrinologists are the experts in diabetes care in theory. But the problem with endocrinology is that they're very medicine centric. And it's nice to know that at least their association, this is back in 2016, guys, that's 8 years ago, has put low carb as a dietary option. And more recently in 2023, the American Heart Association now endorses low carb, but they had to put an asterisk in their endorsement for very low carb. They said, if you're doing a very low carb diet, medical oversight is necessary. Not because it's a dangerous diet, but because it was the most effective diet in reducing your blood sugar. So the risk of low sugars, if you're not being deprescribed medicines, was very high. So it was really nice to finally see these organizations endorse these dietary patterns. More importantly, for clinicians who are hearing our voice tonight, you now have permission to at least say, well, I'm using this diet with my patient because these other organizations are endorsing it. So the fears of your license being taken away and things like that should be fears of the past. So what are the benefits of therapeutic carb restriction? We're kind of talking about diabetes tonight, but it's bigger than diabetes. And that's why I have heart disease. That's why we have dementia. As many of you know, they call dementia type 3 diabetes. And for those who have heard experts talk about cancer, you know about the Warburg effect, and that the cancer cells in many cases are favoring glucose as their primary fuel versus ketones. So if you're on a keto diet, you may starve some cancer cells. And of course, your fatty liver is going to be reversible with this dietary pattern. Now, here's an example of your blood pressure. And this is a young lady who comes in, she starts a keto diet. She does therapeutic carb restriction. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And she notices my blood pressure is getting better. So the question is, why is her blood pressure getting better? Well, one of the things that she did when she started her keto diet is she removed a lot of grains. So, and I say that looking at this slide because keto was finally compared to a DASH diet. Now, as you know, if you go to any doctor's office in the United States, the dietary approach to stop hypertension is considered a standard of care. But this study was only done recently in June of 2023. And when they did this study comparing very low carb, which is keto, to a diet that dealt with the DASH diet, this is what they found. For blood pressure, if you look at the top, 9.77 to 5.18, there was twice the reduction in blood pressure with the keto diet. If you go a little further down, you'll notice that the weight was dropped. It was twice as effective for reducing weight with the keto diet. And most importantly, it was 3 times, if you look at that glycosylated hemoglobin, 3 times more effective for reducing the blood sugar and the A1C. It should be logical, though, because if you look at a DASH diet food pyramid, you'll see a lot of grains, you'll see a lot of fruit, and you'll see the things that we all know in clinic will raise your blood sugar. So your doctor may have not heard of this study, which is why I included it in the presentation. If I were you, I would circle back. I would print that study and I would bring it to your doctor if you're wanting to do this diet. And again, this is not just for blood pressure. We're talking about prediabetes, diabetes, and weight loss as well. You got all of those conditions that we need to think about. Here is more proof. Kerry just suggested that he enjoyed those video shorts that I've been sharing about patients. Well, this gentleman, as you can see, you will be told by doctors that you cannot improve your kidney function. You just have to kind of wait for them to fail. Well, you can see what happened to that microalbumin, which is measuring the protein in the urine. And you don't want to lose muscle or protein in your urine. When you do, that means your kidneys are getting weak. And you can see from what happened, he was at 1,800 down to 300. Now, the last time I saw Otis, this gentleman, it was in the 30 range. In other words, in the normal range. And by the way, he has type 1 diabetes, not even type 2. So anything is possible if you do this dietary pattern. Here's another, Gwendolyn Butler, a patient of mine who had been on insulin for 11 years, and she was able to get off of her insulin in, I think, 45 days. Now, imagine what she felt like. You asked that question, Kerry, what is it like? Well, what is it like to tell somebody you can get off your insulin when the other doctors told them you'll be on it for the rest of your life? It is an amazing moment. And I guess she did trust God, as her shirt would say, and she was able to make a change. And finally, this patient, as you see, imagine 190 blood pressure within 4 months going to normal with no changes in her prescription. It was all the diet that did it for us. So I just wanted to put that in front of you guys. I'm a weight loss management doc, so I could show like slide after slide about weight loss. This was a 264 going to 177, so about an 80-pound weight loss. So I'm excited, but I did want to put this, one of my favorite images, in front of you, just to speak a little bit about why a low-carb diet is not just fixing diabetes, it's fixing your blood pressure and other things. And as you can imagine, now you know from the previous image that overnutrition is all about carbs, right? We know that the carbs is what does it. We can't change our mama and daddy, and most of us are not on high-dose insulin. So that hyperinsulinemia leads to insulin resistance, vasoconstriction to the right. You see the absorption of salt. So even if you don't have salt in your diet, if you have hyperinsulinemia, you're going to hold on to salt in your kidneys. And then you have inflammation leading to hypertension and cardiovascular disease. But the most important part of this image is these are blood vessels, guys. And I wonder where you have blood vessels in your body. And the answer is, therefore,
Dr. Hampton, I think we lost your audio.
oh, okay.
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. So
It-
if you imagine a person with any concern about health conditions that can harm them, and you know there's blood vessels everywhere, you can understand why diabetes is the number one cause of amputations. You can understand why diabetes is the number one cause of blindness. You can understand why diabetes is the number one cause of kidney failure. People with diabetes get heart attacks and stroke. The point of it is that you have blood vessels everywhere. So by fixing the hyperinsulinemia, you fix a whole lot of stuff, not to mention the negative effects that the sugar has on your nerves, which are all over your body. So now you understand why diabetes is such a devastating disease. So instead, now this is the slide that's really interesting. What do we do in healthcare in the United States? We say, don't worry about eating the sugar. Continue to eat the sugar. We'll just give you a medicine called Jardiance to make you urinate out the sugar. Does that make any sense to anybody who's checking us out tonight? And what does that sugar do to your kidneys? Oh, don't worry about the insulin resistance and the endothelial nitric oxide being reduced. We'll just give you nitroglycerin. Don't worry about that. Oh, don't worry about the calcium influx that can cause vasoconstriction. We'll just give you a calcium blocker called amlodipine or nifedipine. Oh, don't worry about the sodium reabsorption issue. We'll just give you a water pill. And guess what? Don't worry about the inflammation. We'll just give you a statin. This is what healthcare in most countries look like. We'll give you these 5 pills instead of addressing the root cause. I think we have a problem, Houston. And this is so important. So let's continue to talk about the benefits of carb restriction. You're going to have improved insulin sensitivity, meaning that the insulin that you do have will work better. And if you reduce your carbs to less than 50, and myself and Dr. West.
Oh, your audio is cutting out again.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I'm not sure why it's doing that. So whenever it does, and I'll try to adjust a few things here. Okay. So the goal is to get to a body that is using ketones as its primary fuel. And when you do that, you're going to shift your metabolic processes in a way that's more favorable. Your blood pressure, when you reduce that insulin, you're going to improve your.
Oh, it's cutting out again.
Okay.
It's big sugar. Yeah, it's still not coming through.
Okay.
Seems like it's something wrong with the cable, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe you got a loose cable, Dr. Hampton, because it cuts in and out. While Dr. Hampton is working on that, Dr. Westman, I just had a question for you. What is it like for you? You've traditionally seen folks in the clinic and help people sort of one-on-one, but now you have a YouTube channel and social media, and so you're able to reach many more people. How has that sort of changed things for you?
Yeah, it's changed my patient mix quite a bit. I'll have people coming to me having watched my YouTube the day before. And so I'm caught between, well, I did that a couple of weeks ago and it lags to, anyway. So I'm seeing a lot of different questions than I had seen in the past. So my practice starts in Durham, and I'm still in Durham at Duke University, and I see mostly local people, but there's a button that's being pushed, and I think I'm one of the only doctors in a clinic who will be in the insurance system, at least in this area, who will help you even if you're not eating vegetable matter. You know, if you're carnivore, I'll talk to you and hear stories that are, like you've heard, are unbelievable, and yet they're true. And then a lot of people are coming to me to talk about the cholesterol levels and the shift from total and LDL cholesterol to triglyceride and HDL in the blood, and the reversal of different conditions, like we're seeing in the chat here, is just it's true. I mean, so the problem with the internet or a practice like mine is you don't know what percentage of people will be fixed with with a rare condition. But for diabetes and obesity, I mean, it's almost 100%. We know that from the clinical trials. But so the YouTube channel has been very helpful in getting information out for free, right? And then I also do have a proprietary education company, but most of my time really is at Duke in a clinic. And yet the scalability of the internet makes it so that I can reach thousands of people with the Adapt for Life Academy platform. So thanks for asking. But still my heart and my, like Dr. Hampton, sitting down one-on-one and seeing the light bulb go off for people when they finally get it. And but a lot of people now are coming to me already having fixed themselves. So, well, which reminds me of how I got into this in the first place. 2 of my patients lost weight on their own. This is 25 years ago. And I thought, this is easy. We'll do a few studies. People can do this on their own. They don't need their doctors. And so I will kind of jokingly say that even today, that, you don't need me. You can do this on your own. But actually, we can help get people started in the correct manner, de-prescribe medicines safely. And so there is a role for a doctor. But I love the idea of training coaches and people who are not necessarily medically trained, because lifestyle is something we can all teach each other, like through films and through the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners and through the American Diabetes Society. My practice has changed, and I'm still pretty much 4 days a week full-time in the clinic at Duke University.
That's wonderful. Thanks. Yeah, it's just interesting. There's so many downfalls with technology, but this is definitely a big benefit, just the scale of people that you're able to reach now, whereas before it was just kind of one person at a time. Dr. Hampton, do you think we got the...
Yeah, I think I'm going to use the computer's mic.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, so thank you for tolerating that. And again, if you're in ketosis, you're using ketones as your primary fuel source, but your cholesterol, I was suggesting, was one of the things doctors worry about. But you're going to improve your triglyceride to HDL ratio, which is a better predictor of heart disease than your cholesterol or LDL. And if you're concerned about your LDL, you can get the particle sizes, and you'll notice in most cases you're going to increase the large and decrease the small. In other words, that the quality of your cholesterol will be better. And of course, when it comes to your appetite, people who eat these dietary patterns are not really hungry. So that's a huge benefit. And me and my colleagues realize that if we can get that hunger out of there, we're going to do much better. So when people are in front of us and we're trying to decide who needs to think about this dietary pattern, it ends up being most Americans, because only about 7% of us are metabolically healthy. So anybody with metabolic issues, their blood pressure, blood sugar, their triglycerides, HDL, or their belly size is not where you want it to be. Those are the people we think about. And we think about who they are. We get baseline information. We come up with a plan. And we even look at their medicines, because as an obesity doctor, I know certain medicines can actually cause you to gain weight, antihistamines, beta blockers, et cetera. And so once we get that in front of us, we start thinking about, what's the current state? And as you could imagine, the dietary guidelines, if you look at that image of that pyramid to the left, you'll notice there's a lot of grains and breads and cereal, and that's the foundation of the diet recommendation back then. And even the food plate a little bit later, where you have fruit. I'm not sure a diabetic should be eating fruit and a lot of grain. So half of that plate, it should really be protein and vegetables as the primary source of nutrition. The typical American eats between 225 to 325 carbs a day. And it sounds impossible that that's true, but that's what the data has shown us. So this is what we are going to try to suggest you think about. Again, if you look at a clinic like mine and Dr. Eric Westman, we're really trying to get people under 30 or 20 carbs a day. That's going to allow the average person to have a good chance to be in a ketogenic state. And then you have some who will allow people to be between 30 and 50. It depends on the individual. And then, of course, low carb kind of starts at 130, which sounds like a high number or less. But the reality is, when you compare it to the standard American diet, it's not really a high number at all. It's all about where people start. So when people are in front of me, I get basic labs, which and most of the labs towards the top are labs you're going to get a CBC, metabolic profile, your regular cholesterol, thyroid, A1C, liver test, etc. You're going to get those no matter what. The tests that your doctor may not be doing are like a fasting insulin, the LDL particle sizes, so you can distinguish between a small and a large, a C-peptide to distinguish between a type 1, type 2, something called the apoprotein beta-A ratio, and the islet cell antibodies, which if you have a C-peptide that's too low, suggesting type 1, you want to see if you have antibodies. And then those additional tests towards the bottom are things you may want to think about. Just keep in mind that some of these tests are not covered. All my patients over 35 will be encouraged to get a heart scan. And as you can see, it's not like an MRI. It's like a donut. And with that test, you're able to see if these white plaques exist. One to the bottom right, it has a high score. Ideally, you have a 0 score where there's 0 plaquing. And if you get a test like this, you have a good chance to predict whether or not you'll have a heart attack. My health system only charges $49 for this test. It's usually going to be between 50 and 100. I encourage anybody over 35 who hasn't done that to do that test. So now let's look at the medicines required. Now here's another moment of technology. Let me just try to do this again because it looks like the words weren't showing up properly. So what do you need to pay attention to? My wife has type 1 diabetes, and for her, we have to be careful when we're doing a low carb keto diet, because obviously if we give her too much insulin or not enough, it can be problematic. Arguably the same is true for type 2. And of course, if your blood pressure is, you're on medicines and you're doing keto or low carb, you may have a drop in your blood pressure. So we have to be very careful. That's why it's important that doctors get training so they'll learn how to deprescribe so that you won't end up in the ER with a low blood sugar or a low blood pressure. Other things to consider: many doctors are afraid of keto because they're saying it's too much protein, let's be clear, keto is generally a moderate protein diet. But even if you say is protein an issue, in most cases, mild, moderate kidney disease, not really a huge issue, you still have to pay attention. If it's more severe, you have to really be with a doctor who understands how to manage that. You can still do it, but you have to do it with caution. Gout's an issue because ketones are being excreted in the urine in the beginning, and uric acid's being excreted in the urine, and sometimes the ketones are winning the battle. So in order to mitigate that, some people need to be on allopurinol temporarily, and once they get into a keto state and they're not releasing all those ketones in their urine, a lot of times they're able to do really well. And by the way, people in a keto state who's metabolically not inflamed and doing well, they tend not to have gout flares anymore. So it's really a great diet for that. And of course, your electrolyte balance needs to be thought about as well. And that's why some people take supplements for that. Side effects, everybody's familiar with keto flu. Some people call it carb withdrawal. So we have to manage that, and we tend to manage that making sure our patients are getting enough salt. As you can see, you need as many as 5 to 7 grams of salt, which sounds incredibly high for people who are not familiar with this, but that's what you need to do to mitigate some of those potential side effects. And of course, medications, right? So there's a lot of good news in that some medicines, like at the bottom, it says you can take metformin, not a problem while you're doing keto. Other things that are important to know is that these SGLT2s, which is second from the bottom, like that medicine I mentioned earlier, that makes you urinate out sugar, can cause something called euglycemic ketoacidosis. So you have to be careful. So this slide you can refer to as you review this video later. It's just giving you an idea of some of the medicines you need to be thoughtful about as you're moving forward. So patients come in, we are helping them to monitor their blood pressure at home, because a lot of times the blood pressure will drop with this dietary pattern. So we want to make sure they're paying attention. We're making sure that they're going to help us to adjust their medicines moving forward. And then, of course, there are certain medicines that require further consideration, like warfarin. I would think any medicine that has to be measured for their therapeutic range, you need to be particularly cautious of those medicines and pay attention while you're transitioning, so you'll know if the diet has impacted the meds. You can certainly do the diet, but you have to show a level of caution. And everybody should be monitoring their blood sugar if they have diabetes. I particularly love continuous glucose monitors because they allow you to see the impact of lack of sleep, stress, or of course your diet. And then you can start to adjust your diet based on what you see with those tools. And of course, it's important that you know, because you'll hear from others, that if you don't eat carbs, you can't be healthy. We now know that carbs are a non-essential nutrient. It's okay to eat them, but you only need protein and fat, essential amino acids, essential fatty acids to live. So if anybody tells you that you can't live without carbs, that's just from a biochemistry perspective, untrue. And that's why a bear can eat salmon with protein and fat and nothing else and be just fine. You're no different than that bear. And so I think it's important that as you begin this process of restricting carbs, that you start to notice things that are improving, like your metabolic labs, and that you continue to adjust. So if you find you've gone all the way to ketovore, even carnivore, and then you want to add vegetables back, let's see what you tolerate, and let's see what is not affecting your sugar, and let's eat the things that are not affecting you negatively, and take that type of approach. And finally, we need to monitor daily, whether it's with, a journal, checking in with your doctor. This is just basic common sense, but you need to stay on top of that. That way, if you struggle, you'll have somebody in front of you who can talk to you about that struggle. So the last part of this brief presentation is resources. A lot of the things I just shared were from the guidelines for therapeutic carb restriction. I know a lot of people don't like the term restriction. Maybe we should have said carb reduction. Either way, a great tool you can get from the Symposium or Society for Metabolic Health Practitioners, Low Carb USA. In my YouTube channel, in the comments, you'll see, or in the video notes, you'll see links to everything I'm sharing right now. So if you need to find those links, just go to the channel and look for that. This is a wonderful presentation that we did that was organized by Nina Teichels. Ben Bickman and others participated in it. And this is a free course that honored Sarah Holberg, who worked at Virta Health. And she was really all about helping people reverse diabetes. Again, a link to that. And it's really about a 3 or 4 hour course that's free. So please go to that link and check that out. I participated in that as well. Somebody that looks very familiar also has a master class coming up. Right now, it's kind of on a wait list. It hasn't been created yet, but I just want you guys to be able to go to that link and hear from Dr. Eric Westman and his approach to reversing type 2 diabetes. I think that's going to be a great resource. I just interviewed Dr. Sanghani, and Dr. Sanghani just released this book in June. She's actually someone who worked in my health system with Advocate Health. She's currently in India, and she's helping people not just with type 2, but with type 1 diabetes. This is a phenomenal resource, and it's written for the 5th grader. So for those who struggle, like Dr. Bernstein has a great book, but it can be overwhelming to some people. This is a great place to start. So I encourage everybody to just go to Amazon and get her book. It's a phenomenal resource. I have it on my bookshelf as well. And for vegetarians, because we want to honor everybody's dietary pattern, the Vegetarian Reset is how we are vegetarian and we do low carb, right? In other words, Dr. Rashani, she's actually in India, where a lot of people are plant-based. So if you're in a world where you have to eat plant-based, your religion, your ethics, you have a resource. Again, we want to meet people where they are. I have a link tree. So if you want to, check out my diabetes book, the low carb handout that I give out, just like Dr. Eric Westman has a handout, how to adopt low carb, how to do carnivore. We have videos. So I just wanted to put that in front of you as well. And of course, we have YouTube channels. All of your panelists today have YouTube channels. you type their name and diabetes, and you'll probably find videos that speak to that. And because my wife's type 1, I wanted to make sure everybody knew about the Type 1 Grit Facebook group. Again, inspired by that book and that beautiful kid's hands. It's a group that has done a phenomenal job supporting each other. More importantly, we have science. They did a study, and the study is here. And they took the type 1 diabetics who were doing basically keto. And what they did is they got their carbs on average around 36 or less a day, close to where we like it to be. Their average A1C is 5.6, guys. And as you know, that's a normal A1C for 316 people who participated in that study. So that's a no-brainer. And of course, the American Diabetes Society faded on me again, but we're not going to worry about that. And of course, that's what we're talking about today. So at the end of the day, I'll conclude with that. And I just want to let you guys know, if you're new to this idea of reversing diabetes, this is not a anecdotal, maybe it'll happen. I see it happening every single day in my practice, and it's become the normal in my practice. I'm actually shocked when people are not reversing their diabetes. They follow our recommendations. So I really want to encourage you guys, share this with friends and family so that they can restore hope. And so many people are still living without hope.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Hampton. Really appreciate it. So we're gonna go back to Dr. Hampton, Dr. Westman, but we've got some really incredible stories from individuals we want to share as well. And we have one individual here I'm going to add to the stage. Welcome, Chris Spath. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing wonderful. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, Chris looks familiar. Chris and Laura have a wonderful YouTube channel. There's a link in the description below. Very inspiring. You guys have been doing carnivore for a long time now, but hoping to share your story, Chris. Could you tell us your type 2 diabetes story?
Absolutely. First, let me say, it's an honor to be here with all you guys, Dr. Westman, Dr. Hampton. Kerry, I've talked to you a bunch of times over email, but it's nice to meet you in person. And nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet you.
So I'll go back about 2015 or so. Actually, let's go back a little further than that. Let's say 2013 or so. I was over 300 pounds, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started peeing a lot. That was the first symptom I had, and I started having all these weird symptoms. I went to the doctor. My A1C was 11.6. I was a mess of type 2 diabetes, and they put me on all the pills, metformin, glyburide. My blood pressure was through the roof, so they had me on lisinopril, and I had other conditions, pain everywhere, back pain, allergies, the whole 9 yards. And, at first when I was diagnosed, they didn't tell me what to do. They just said, this will be what it is. Take the medicine, try to lose some weight, try to eat better. That's really all they said. And I tried a few things at first, but nothing really stuck. And it wasn't until 2016, which you guys can see that picture of me in the hospital bed. I actually got flesh-eating disease, or necrotizing fasciitis. And I spent 7 weeks in the hospital and about 12 surgeries and nearly died, so a week in a coma. It was really a traumatic thing. I came out of that and I made it, and I was very grateful to have made it. It still took me a little while, maybe almost a year after that, before I really said, why did this happen to me? What am I doing to myself? I'm basically killing myself. And started doing some research because I knew my doctors weren't doing anything for me. And that's when I found, the low carb community. I found Dr. Jason Fung was the first one I found. And, I started, my wife and I together both jumped into like a keto type diet. And then I always hated vegetables, so I never really ate them unless she was giving me the side eye. So I quickly found the carnivores. I found Dr. Baker, Dr. Berry, and all these guys, and I can do that. And that was it for me. And so I started eating carnivore with a combination of some intermittent fasting and extended fasting, and the weight just started falling off. My blood sugar came down to within normal range within a month. My blood pressure within about 2 months came down. I was still taking that medication, and I was dizzy and lightheaded. I checked my blood pressure. It was too low, so I had to stop taking that medication. within 9 months, I lost over 100 pounds, about 110 pounds, and felt better than I ever felt in my life, and went back to the doctor, and, you know, he ran all the tests and said, great on the weight loss. Didn't even ask what I did. And my A1C was 4.9 after 9 months doing carnivore and intermittent fasting. And he just said, great. He said, I'm just going to change your record here to say resolved under type 2 diabetes. And so that was a real big achievement, and I was very happy about that. And I made the decision, you know, I can't go back, you know. Reverse, they say, can it be cured? Can it be reversed? You know, I don't know in all the nuance of that, but I know that I don't have it anymore. My body doesn't exhibit any of those symptoms. I don't have any of those markers. So if I went to a random doctor, they would never be able to say that I'm a type 2 diabetic. But I know that I'm not going to put myself in a scenario where I'm potentially going to go back there. So this way of eating, at least 98%, is the way I'm going to go for the rest of my life. You know, it's changed everything. All those medications I'm off, even the allergy medications, my allergies went away. Everything, every symptom I had, the aches, the pains, and now, you know, I'm doing great. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can see the mark on my face from training this morning. But I'm at the gym every week. I'm training. I'm living life. I have young kids, so I don't want to spend that time in the hospital or even dead. You know, I did a lot of damage to my body in the past, and I'm hoping that most of that, or if not all, can be undone. But I'm not going to do anything to go backwards in that timeline. And I really hope that people can hear these kinds of stories and know that it's possible and that you can do it. You know, my story is pretty aggressive and it moved pretty quickly. And for me, with the resolve I had and the consistency, it was fairly easy. It's simple, I should say. It wasn't easy, you know, because you got to make that decision and really stick with it. But I know that even if some people's timelines are longer, they can do it.
That's incredible. I was trying to pull this picture back up here for you. Here we go. That is amazing, Chris. Not only did you lose the weight, which is incredible, but you look like 20 years younger. You look like you've de-aged as well. It's just incredible.
Not my hair, though. My hair's still really gray.
Right. I'm sorry if you said this. I was clicking around to try to get your image on there. But so how long would you say you've been doing a proper human diet now?
Since early 2018. So it's a little over 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And that's one of the coolest things is just being able to keep it off consistently. I've lost weight in the past, you know, but never was able to maintain that or keep that consistently. And I don't have to worry about, obviously I worry about what I'm eating, but I don't really have to worry about how much in any sense. I just eat the foods I know I can eat and I'm good to go.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really inspiring about your channel, you and Laura, is that you've been doing this for so many years. I think that's a question a lot of people have is this sustainable? Am I going to get bored? Am I going to get sick of it? Can I keep doing it? But I think you've kind of proven you're able to do that.
Yeah, it's actually fun for me. I mean, my favorite food even back then was always steak. I just had potatoes and bread and ice cream afterwards. So if you told me I could eat steak every day, I'm a happy camper. So it's easy to sustain. You know, you learn how to cook, you learn how to make those things you love taste as best as they possibly can, and it never gets old and you never get tired of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there could be a lot worse things in the world than having to eat steak all the time, right?
Right.
Chris, what advice would you give someone if they had type 2 diabetes?
Well, it seems pretty obvious, but type 2 diabetes being, you know, excess blood sugar, that the last thing you'd want to put into your system is more sugar. So the first thing is just, you know, and sugar's not just the white powdery stuff, you know, it's also the breads, the pastas, the potatoes, you know, the fruit. Just stop putting that in your body first. And then do your research, you know. Your doctor's going to say one thing. the establishment system is going to say, have a list of things, the standard of care and all this. And we're programmed from an early age to trust that and to follow along with that. And I can't do anything different, but there's a whole world of information out there that's not served by the interests of those industries, from a corporate sense or financial or any of that stuff. And go jump out there, learn as much as you can from every person you can, even vegetarians or every kind of diet you can think of. Just take it all in and then hone what you want to do and think about what makes the most sense, physically from a human standpoint or evolutionary and logical sense, and make that decision and go for it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story. I encourage everyone, if you're not following Laura and Chris on their YouTube channel, I have a link in the description below. It's awesome. I absolutely love your YouTube channel. Great YouTube channel. Very inspiring. Recipes, food videos, all sorts of family fun as well, traveling around. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. So let's see. One other thing I wanted to share real quick, and then we got another story I wanted to share, was part of the reason that we're doing this is to spread awareness for the ADS, to raise funds for it. There's 2 links in the description below, so click on that if you want to support it. I personally donated myself and shouted it out. But my ulterior motive as well is we're doing this documentary, and we've filmed 27 people so far, but we still want to film a couple individuals that have overcome type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes for our documentary. So we're trying to find some more stories. So if there's anyone out there that has an incredible story overcoming type 2 diabetes that you're interested in sharing, please do that with us. You can go to our website, healinghumanity.movie. And I just wanted to share this real quick. It's 3 minutes long. It's just a little teaser sort of trailer featuring Dr. Tony Hampton and Dr. Barry, just to give you guys an idea of what we're working on with our documentary. We're trying to share real inspirational stories from individuals. So I'm going to share that with you now. Here we go. Hello, Kerry here from Healing Humanity. A proper human diet has changed my life forever. Not only am I down over 100 pounds since my heaviest, I also overcame depression and anxiety and many other issues. Now I'm going on a journey to help others do the same.
I've been a doctor for nearly 30 years now.
We've all been misled for so long.
They gave me pills for anxiety. They gave me pills for depression.
Our bodies are so deficient and so malnourished that of course you're going to get diseases. Of course you're going to get sick.
I believe that I may have caused my cancer.
It is no way to live. It's a nightmare.
I was just so hopeless for so many years. It just kills me to know that the answer was out there the whole time.
The food that we're eating nowadays is simply not food. I mean, just because we put it in our mouths and we chew it and swallow it doesn't make it food.
We can sit back and we can say the bloody doctors, it's not their fault. They were trained and they're doing what they were trained to do.
The thing that really pisses me off is that the people that we should have been able to trust, the literal organizations that we look up to protect us, are the people who have done the majority of the misleading.
I'm 82 years old, which is just a chronological number. You put the right fuel in the engine and the engine works.
I've now transitioned from a disease manager to a disease healer. I've transitioned from a drug dealer to a healer.
3 weeks ago, I didn't know this man, Bill, from Alaska. Bill is 700 pounds and he's been stuck in his house for 4 years. You nervous?
I'm nervous, Kerry.
I live in Alaska, the most incredible place on the planet. I had to have a toilet put, a few feet from my bed, which I can barely walk to as is. I have not been outside in over 4 years. This is life or death for me. sorry, Karen. I'm sorry about that.
Here.
Man, thanks, dude. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Now, for the first time in a long, long time, I'm looking towards the future, which I have not had in such a long, long time. And it's just the most incredible feeling.
Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed our preview. There's so many more stories out there that need to be told. If you want to learn more, if you want to contribute, if you want to support our efforts, please visit healinghumanity.movie. All right. So really excited to share more on that. Bill Knott, by the way, if you guys aren't watching Bill Knott's channel, my mom calls me up and she doesn't ask me how I'm doing. She asks how Bill Knott's doing. Bill Knott's doing wonderful. You guys got to watch his channel. He's outside in the beauty of Alaska for the first time. And we're going to film him in less than a month from now, walking around outside and exploring Alaska after almost 5 years now being trapped indoors. So really excited for that. But there's, like I said, we filmed 27 people so far. So we're really excited to get this documentary out to the world and help inspire people with these individual stories that are so important. Speaking of individual stories, we've got carnivore brother Ashley here. How's it going, Ashley? Welcome.
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Doing wonderful. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Super.
So Ashley, you have a story you were going to share. Can you tell us your type 2 diabetes story?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm super, super excited to be on and with these great doctors that are helping spread this message and part of the Healing Humanity team. Just totally inspired by stories like Bill Knott and some of the others that are out there. So I feel honored just to share a little bit of mine. Yeah, just the quick version of what my type 2 diabetes stories was when I was first diagnosed, when honestly I'd gotten to some of my heaviest weight. Don't know exactly where it was, over 250 pounds, but I started losing weight unexplainably. I was 40 years old. I figured out I was your typical male who didn't go see the doctor, didn't have a lot of blood work done. I thought I'd better go check it out. I'd lost about 30 pounds without any explanation. And honestly, I was scared it was probably cancer. Something was eating me from the inside out. Nothing had changed about my diet. I was still eating a terrible diet, fast food all the time, drank Dr. Pepper's like it was coming out of a hose. I mean, it was just terrible. And went to the doctor and really nervous and scared for what the results was going to be. But when it was funny, because when he actually said I was in really bad shape, I was expecting the worst, and he said you have type 2 diabetes. Your A1C is 11.1, and your cholesterol is through the roof. I actually was relieved because I thought I was worried for cancer, and I didn't know what type 2 diabetes was. I'm like, okay, so all right, what do we do now? And so. I knew hardly anything about it other than hearing the word diabetes before. And so, immediately he wanted to put me on some medications and things like that. And the first question out of my mouth, I distinctly asked him, I've never been a huge believer. I didn't want to get on some medicines, and I knew that a lot of the side effects from it. And that isn't the route I wanted to go at first, but I also knew this was serious. And so when he said I needed to be on medications, I said, can I just do something else for 3 months, and let's see if we can change it that way. And he set me up with a nutritionist, but he said, no, you're too far gone. You need to be on the meds. And so I asked him one more question. I said, Doc, okay, if I go on these medicines, and I know there's some risks in there, which I'd love to hear more about and hear about the other risk there, how much could that really take my A1C score down that I'm just learning about is now 11.1? He said, oh, it's usually good for about 1 or 2 points. And I said, so I'd still be type 2 diabetic. What, and it didn't make any sense in my brain. I was like, there's got to be something else that I can do, right? And so he said, of course, yeah, you got to, work on your diet. You need to exercise some, and that'll help improve it as well. But you definitely need to be on the medicines. Well, I didn't go on the medicines. I went and I talked to the nutritionist. I wanted to find out what that was all about. And when she gave me the advice of, well, rather than eating a whole package of Oreo cookies, just eat 1 or 2 of them. And the more I realized, and that was that moderation theme, right? And the more I realized that, wait a second, I asked her, I remember specifically, and I said, well, if it's the sugars and the carbs that are doing it to me, why wouldn't I just cut it all out? I don't understand. Why are you telling me just eat one? Well, most people can't do that. And I said, well, I'm sorry. This is life-threatening. This has so many complications as a result of it. I'm cutting it out. And so thankfully I had an amazing wife, and she had actually already been doing a lot of research. This was 8 years ago, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. This was when I turned 40, and I'm now 48. But she had already been doing some research, and when I got home and I told her the news and what was going on, she basically like, I know what to do. I've been researching this. There's something called the paleo diet, and I think this is what we need to do. And so it was essentially just getting rid of a lot of the carbs and the sugars. And I didn't even know a potato was a carb at the time. So she was amazing. She helped me understand a lot of that. And she did it right along with me because it was serious, and we did it together, which was awesome. And I was very proud to say in 3 months' time, when I went back to that same doctor and I did my blood work again, his jaw dropped and he was like, my A1C was down to 5.9. He was like, how did you do that? And I said, well, I didn't take your medicines. Probably that was a little sarcastic. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I said that. And I said, I changed my diet. I stopped eating the carbs and the sugars as much as I knew how. And so that helped me realize at that time that diet can absolutely help make a change. That was 8 years ago. What I didn't know at the time was the addictive properties of sugar. And so what did I do after being great for 3 months? And I said, hey, I'm doing great. I rewarded myself, patted myself on the back, and I went and had a pizza and an ice cream. And it was only going to be once a month. It was only going to be once a week. I was only going to be once a day. And then pretty soon I'm right back into my old habits and right back on the standard American diet, out of convenience, it was easy. And I knew what I could do to fix it later on. And so, I just let it go. 8 years later, I check in my blood sugar levels. For those who are type 2 diabetic, you prick your finger, you get your blood sample, and I knew my glucose levels were high, but I was kept in the back of my mind, I have time, I'll fix it later. And anyway, things got serious again. And when I was 48, I was blessed to be part of a great men's group in my church. And one of the guys in there, we were out at lunch one time, and I was expressing some of my issues with the type 2 diabetes and not feeling great anymore and some of the other things. And he just said, have you ever heard of the carnivore diet? And I was like, no, what's that? And so he started talking to me a little bit about that, gave me some amazing resources like Dr. Barry and some of those great doctors online that I started digging into. But to me, it was like, eat meat. I love to eat meat, get rid of the vegetables. Let's do this. I knew I could change things through my diet. So I was like, this is something I can do. But this time it was different because we have so many incredible doctors out there now sharing this information online, which is what I love being part of this live and getting to share this detail. They are the ones helping us understand who don't know better about the addictive properties of sugar. Now I know it's in everything, and realizing when you start reading the labels, oh my word. So you really have to make some serious commitment to change. I've been carnivore now for 16 months. And I will say, when I did my 9-month blood work after starting carnivore, my A1C was 5.3. So the good doctors on screen will know that that's no longer type 2 diabetes. And what was amazing about it, in my mind, after getting through the sugar addictions, which takes some time, I don't feel those same cravings anymore. I feel amazing. In fact, I just did a video on our channel where I may not have expressed it as well as I wanted to, but I feel an amazing freedom that I've never felt before in food. And people say it's so restrictive, you're only eating meat. I feel more free than I've ever felt before because it's easy for me. I can eat ribeyes. I'm blessed to live in Texas, so ribeyes are fairly inexpensive and have some amazing deals. I eat a lot of them. I eat a lot of hamburger. I focus on the meats. I focus on the eggs. I focus on what my body handles really well, and I feel like I'm thriving. I feel 20 years younger. I lost about 70 pounds in total since my heaviest, and just feel incredible. And what's really cool about it is, one of the things that I worried about was those negative side effects from the medications, right? Every side effect that I have felt from being on the carnivore diet has been positive. I sleep better. I feel better. I have more energy. I don't snore at night anymore. I mean, I don't sunburn. It's just crazy stuff. I keep looking at going, this is amazing. And I just feel incredible. So I just wanted to share my story and let everybody know that, yeah, I think it does take some time. You definitely have to put in some effort, but you can 100% control and reverse the type 2 diabetes through eating a proper human diet. And I encourage you to get on and continue to listen to good doctors like this who are giving some incredible information and a lot of testimonies I know you'll share tonight. So Thank you for the opportunity, Kerry. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Dr.
Ashley.
Westman and Dr. Tony for being on here and just sharing this great message.
That's wonderful. I love your story, Ashley. I really appreciate you sharing it. Everyone check out Carnivore Brothers on YouTube too. There's more than one person in the story too, right? You guys got an awesome YouTube channel. Their dad's doing carnivore. He's spreading the word. He's helping out with the documentary as well. Thank you so much, Ashley. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kerry.
Everyone check out Ashley's channel. I have a link in the description below. Let's check in with Alia here real quick. Alia, how's it going?
It's going great. Hello, how are you all doing? So I want to say two things. So far tonight, we have fundraised $266 as of the GoFundMe right now. Sometimes it takes a little bit to update, so I'm sure there's more donations coming through. I think an error at the beginning. I didn't say that I would love if we could donate, like fundraise $5,000 tonight. That would be amazing. And we did almost $50,000 in 24 hours last year. So I think that's just like a drop in the bucket, and it would be amazing to flow that power and support to these wonderful doctors that are here tonight. And Dr. Camberry, who is all over the chat right now. So that's what I wanted to say. And these stories are super inspiring, and we need to reach more people. We need to help more people. And I know that this organization, the society, is going to, somebody said, turn the tide of what's considered proper standard of health for people who have diabetes or pre-diabetes. So all donations are helping to make that a possibility. Thank you so much. I do want to say Kerry also has 9 new members, which supports the Healing Humanity documentary. So thank you so much for that. And if you want me to leave, I will leave. See you all later.
Thank you, Alia. Appreciate it. Awesome. So I've got an incredible story here I want to share quickly. This man has become a friend of mine. His name is Dave Gregory, and he is legally blind due to type 2 diabetes. And some of the advice that he's been given from the associations out there hasn't been so good, but let me share this video with you here. Dave Gregory.
Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Dave Gregory. I have a bunch of stuff going on. I'm legally blind. I'm on dialysis. I just got out of a wheelchair in like March. I was diagnosed with type 2, which in 1995 was like unheard of for a kid to get type 2 diabetes. Like now, I know the stuff I was eating is just insane, but back then I'd be like, okay, I can eat a potato and be fine, not knowing that that's literally a ball of sugar. I wish that some of these doctors would harper on how bad it could really get. I didn't think it would get this bad. It got bad. It felt like something dropped inside of my eye. Like it felt like something was pushing on my eye, and it was like really dark in my eye. And I'm like, what? And the guy looked in my eye and he said, your retina is detached. And I'm like, don't tell me I can't drive my car. And he's like, well, you still got one eye. So, and it's been hell. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I want to save my vision. I will do anything to save my vision.
I interviewed a couple. They're called the Sightless Carnivores.
I've been blind since birth. I weighed in at birth, weighed in at 1 pound and 15 ounces. Yeah, Amy lost her eyesight because of the type 2 diabetes.
Amy and Shane. Shane was born blind, but Amy got it from type 2 diabetes. And she told me when I interviewed her, she said the foods I was eating led to the diabetes, was the root cause of me becoming blind.
Yeah.
That's the same with you. Like
what happened for some reason when you get these high blood sugars, the vitreous, which is literally that sac behind the eye, it's what holds the retina. It starts detaching. And that's when the retina starts to collapse. A little bit about myself. I grew up a 7-day Adventist, so I grew up vegetarian. I did the raw veganism thing. I did high carbohydrates, low protein, low fat, the 80-10-10 model. And it really was a wreck because I was always eating. And people are like, dude, that's a lot of sugar. I'm like, yeah, but this is like good sugar. I was just misinformed. Their diabetes and even kidney failure doing like all plants. And it just was not working for me. I was eating too much. And also what I noticed is that anytime I would eat fruit, I would just get even more hungry because like my high blood sugar would make me more hungry. And it wasn't until last August, and I saw Dr. Ken Barry, and he was talking about it, and what he was saying with things I never heard before. And I did it for like 2 weeks, and I noticed a tremendous difference. I'm in dialysis, so my dialysis sessions were a lot better. My blood sugars were a lot better. I wasn't getting any more spikes. But, I was still addicted to, sugar. Like lemonade is crack cocaine to me. Like I just couldn't stay away from it. But it wasn't until I reached out to Kerry that he really encouraged me to do the 30. He said, just give it 30 days, man. We've been talking ever since. And what was really cool is that, like, you really kept me encouraged at a time of weakness without you even knowing it. I was on the brink of breaking, and you said, hey, man, just want to encourage you, whatever happens, don't break it, man. Keep it going. This is going to be really good for you. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, let me put that down. And so that really helped me with the 30 days. And I just saw the benefits. I've lost weight and gained muscle. My shirts are loose. My belt is fitting. I don't have as big of a Dunlap as I used to have, in the words of Dr. Ken.
Dave, do you feel like you got a second chance at life with carnivore?
Man, I felt, yes, absolutely. It wasn't until I went carnivore, like really strict, that I started noticing differences. My sleep apnea was better. Dialysis is way better. My blood sugar is way better. My blood pressure. My vision is actually better. There was a time where I started getting light perception in my left eye. Like that's how amazing this was. So I mean, I'm actually within the next year, I'm directing my first feature film. Like I'm back in the film industry. So yes, absolutely. Nothing is going to hold me back from what I want to do. Thank you so much for letting me share this story with you.
All right, so that's my friend Dave Gregory. He's got a great YouTube channel too, and there's a link in the description below. One of the things that was really upsetting with him was he's like, I thought a potato was fine. I didn't realize it's like a big ball of sugar for me. And then you look on the ADA website and it's recommending, yeah, it's a good source of carbohydrates or whatever. And then right above it, it says sponsored by Idaho potatoes or something like that. So his biggest thing was he was just misled, misinformed, listening to associations and people out there and led him down the wrong path, unfortunately. All right, we've got another individual here. Dwight Garlow. How's it going, friend?
Hey, Dwight.
Good. Hey,
Welcome.
Adam. Hi, Kerry. Dr. Tony. Hello. Dr. Eric. Hello.
Dwight, how are you doing? Could you tell us your type 2 diabetes story?
So this happened about 6 years ago for me, that I walked into my doctor's appointment. It was, what was I, 44? And I wanted to get like a physical done kind of thing, know where I was at. So I walk into my doctor's office after some blood draw, and in that one sitting, not even 5 minutes, he had a prescription written for me for 5 different medications. And one of them was obviously my HA1C was up a bit. At the time, it was around 6. And he says, you're pre-diabetic, right? Now, as I'm learning, and now that I know what I know, I might have been a 6, but my fasting insulin was, I was a full-blown type 2 diabetic. There's no doubt after I got my numbers back, right? Took me a while too. My doctor would not do a fasting insulin test on me. He just refused. But I went through a whole slew of things. I had allergies. I had this back rash that was going on, hives that my doctor kept sending me to allergists to find out what was going on. The very last sitting I had with him was, we think you're allergic to your own oils. And I'm like, what? Yeah, so they thought I was allergic to and I accepted it because we couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, I was in constant itch for years. You'd touch my back or my scalp and it would just welt up into big welts. Anxiety started up. I had inflammation through my body. So I do a lot of sports, and for me, sports are kind of they were a huge part of my life, still are a huge part of my life. And this inflammation that was happening in my ankle, the doctor called it rheumatoid arthritis. I'm like, what is rheumatoid arthritis, right? And I look into more, and it's an autoimmune issue. And thank you to Dr. Eric, Dr. Tony, because through your guys' videos, Dr. Barry, Sean Baker, Thomas DeLauer, like after looking into all this stuff, I got rid of this. And I want to give hope to the athletes out there that are going through knee issues and ankle issues, right? That try this keto lifestyle. Because I went from being only able to play a half inning of baseball to now I'm playing 6 baseball games in a weekend, up to 10 baseball games in a weekend with no pain. I feel like I'm 25, 30 when I was at my peak, right? Well, I still feel like I'm at my peak now, but I know I'm not. The guys haven't touched on this yet, and ED. I had a little case of erectile dysfunction going on, and let me tell you guys out there that it comes back. You go on this lifestyle, bring your insulin down, and it comes back. I had sleep apnea, lots of sleep. Oh my goodness! So I started wearing a Fitbit, and I know Fitbits, they're not very as accurate, but it's a metric, right? I was able to see something, and I was in bed for like 8 hours, but I was only getting like 2 to 4 hours of sleep, and high cortisol with a high dietary intake of sugar. It was just bad. That's a bad recipe for diabetes, right? What else? I had high blood pressure. Just a lot of pain. There's a point where I thought maybe fibromyalgia. My doctor was thinking fibromyalgia, and that's all gone. Like I can do a nice heavy workout. I'm not sore the next day. Unless I'm ripping the fibers. Yeah.
Do you mind if we have Dr. Barry join us for the second part of your story here?
No, not at all.
I know you're a big fan. Hey, yeah. Dr. Barry, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Dr. Ken?
Good to be with you. Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
I wanted Dr. Barry to be here too for the second part of your story, Dwight. Could you tell us what you've been doing in your community?
Oh, so my community is very sick, very, very sick. We in my community, we call diabetes the sugar disease, which it is, right? So I've been working with people from the knowledge that I've gained from you, Ken and Eric and Tony, and especially Ben Bickman, learning about insulin. And I've been teaching people insulin. Let's learn about insulin. Doing a lot of coaching sessions, I would say, with great success. So yesterday, so yesterday my 58. So I keep count of the people that are coming in and that I work with. The ones that are gung ho and take it seriously. Yesterday, 58% came through, and I use the fasting insulin as my metric, right? I don't use the glucose or your HA1C, and they got theirs down to 6. I keep telling them, let's keep going, let's get down to 2 or 5, 4, right? But we always have that goal of under 10 to begin with. But yeah, on Friday I got my 58%. And that's just by teaching the low carb, making sure they got their minerals and vitamins in. If we can, we're getting a vitamin panel done and working mostly on the lifestyle. I always try to go back because I'm North American native or indigenous. So I try to relate to the people that I'm helping. Like, let's go back 30,000 years ago and let's eat that way, right? Let's let's eat those carrots. And those carrots don't exist anymore, right? That's always what I'm trying to say to them. Let's eat that corn. That corn don't exist anymore. I don't recall, I haven't read it in anywhere, but I don't remember having apple trees in North America like where we are, right? So I try to get them to go back to eating berries in season, and then eating meat. Go back to having your like a pemmican style bars. You see a lot of these meat bars coming out now, which is really good. And yeah, so far everything's going good.
So you've got 58 individuals in your community that you've helped basically fix their metabolic health or reverse type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. What does that feel like, Dwight?
It feels really good. It feels really good that the stuff that I'm learning from all you wonderful people that are putting videos out there, and trust me, I've watched all your videos. some of them twice, 3 times, and I'm always pushing people to watch them too, because I want them to learn. But it feels great. It feels good. I feel like I'm making a difference, and coaching is my life, all sports, whatever I'm doing. So this health coaching that I'm doing just makes me feel good that I'm helping.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dwight, for sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Dwight.
Yep, thanks, Adam.
Dr. Barry, welcome. How's it going?
It's going great. You guys, I know you guys love hearing stories like that, but when I hear that kind of story, it makes my heart so happy. It's hard to put into words. I love it that the first Americans have an advocate like him, because I mean, we all know they have gotten the shaft from day one and continue to get the shaft. I mean, they literally the diet that they're told to eat is the worst diet in the world for them. And people of Caucasian descent, Anglo-Saxon, Nordic, we just get fat. We can tolerate it. We can live that. But man, the first Americans, you feed them that diet, they're not going to last long. And it's sad. It's worse than sad. It's pathetic that nobody in a position of authority is saying anything, speaking out about this. And so I'm so glad he's doing that work, and I hope that spreads through the entire population of First Americans in the United States and in Canada, Mexico. I mean, they're all they're essentially the same people. They just spread out, but they cannot eat a high carb diet, or they're not long to this world. At least with vision and kidneys and all their toes.
Absolutely. Dwight has mentioned coaching before. So I said to him, I'm like, are you like charging? Are you coaching people? And he said, oh, no. None of these 58 people are paying me a penny. You couldn't pay me money for what it's worth to be able to change someone's life like that forever. It's just incredible.
Yeah. And I promise you that he's getting paid more, both in this life and in the next life. He's going to be remunerated very, very well.
Absolutely. So we've got one more quick story I want to share. This is Michael, and this one's a little bit of a tearjerker, and then we're going to jump into the doctor's roundtable. So here we go with Michael's story.
I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes about 7 years ago. Of course, that hits you like a ton of bricks. My mother had it. She died of it. I knew that it was a deadly disease, and it hit me pretty hard. I had been suffering from an entrapped nerve in my leg, and it caused me to gain a lot of weight. I can remember being diagnosed obese, pre-diabetic, then morbidly obese and diabetic. The lack of circulation in my legs. And of course, that caused numbness and tingling and pain in my toes especially. But a friend of mine had his foot cut off because of that. 369 pounds from 170. So in 7 more days, it will be exactly 1 year to the day that I began the carnivore diet, and it changed my life. It saved my life. I was at death's door this time last year. I had no hope. Depression had overwhelmed me because of it. I'd been to so many doctors, and I had so many illnesses. I'm cured from everything now. Everything that I had, which are several, and some of them life-threatening, they're all gone. 25 medications I took are all gone. You know, a lot of those things that we like, type 2 diabetes, joint pain, arthritis, sleep apnea, health issues of all kinds, they attribute to natural aging. You know, it's just things that happen to people when they age. No, I don't think so. I do not agree. And I lost a lot of course, 179 pounds so far in less than a year. You know, 6 weeks in, I started breathing a lot better. 6 weeks in, that alone was a game changer because I could then sleep through the night without waking. I had a CPAP machine, the whole 9 yards. It was horrible. I felt better. My mood was better. I had more energy. But if you're thinking about doing the carnivore, neuropathy, and a host of other issues, anything, I really think, because look, it cured everything. The entrapped nerve. I had these 3 fingers right here. These 2 fingers and this thumb were numb and tingly, and I couldn't bend them more than about that much since I was 18 years old. 6, 7, 8 weeks in, I could move them again, and the feeling's all back to normal. All those years, I've been getting better every single week, week after week after week after month. Here it is, 1 year. My whole life is back to normal. I can't believe it. I went from 11.6 HbA1c June of last year to 5.3. So it went down more than half, right? I'm so happy, so blessed. I thank God every day for healing me, for bringing me. You know, the day that I found the video, it was a HomesteadHow by Kerry. I clicked it. It introduced me to the carnivore diet. It saved my life. That's why I'm here. I want to help Dr. Barry and the AIDS Diabetes Association, Kerry, everybody that's doing this out there, putting this out to the world. It's the truth. It's real. It's not a joke. It's not people trying to make a buck. It's the truth. Okay? It's the truth. From almost dead 11.5 months ago to thriving with energy and health. I've done 3 long walks in the last weekend with no pain, 90-minute walks with no pain in my legs. No pain. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's gone. I healed it. Old guy carnivore, ribeye ranger. All these guys, all these women, all these doctors, thank you all. You saved my life.
Wow. So there we go. Those never get old. Those never get old. I can't imagine how many you good doctors get of those messages like that. I get them every now and then, and never ever gets old. Hey, Alia, how's it going on the fundraising?
Hi. Hello, everyone. We are just a couple dollars short of $500 for tonight. And I wanted to say, again, I would like to make $5,000 tonight because I think that is an appropriate amount of money to show love and support to these wonderful doctors, or a lot more. But I need to say that we have 500 people watching, so that's like $10 each, and we'd be hitting that target. And there you go. And I have to say, since Dr. Barry's here, that he's the doctor that absolutely changed my life by watching one of his videos and in 30 seconds hearing that Southern accent and knew that he was the one. No, but seriously, if you listen at the beginning of this, I said so many things changed my life just by going on the proper human diet. So thank you. All right, I'm out. Yeah,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
Ollie. Appreciate you. Everyone go donate. American Diabetes Society. We're not going to change things unless we do this grassroots and we do it as individuals. We can't wait around for these associations and businesses and everyone to change. It's never going to happen. So now I was hoping we could jump in and do a little roundtable, and I wanted to introduce you gentlemen to Dr. Nelson, who's become a good friend of mine as well. Dr. Nelson, how's it going?
It's going very good here, enjoying the experts ahead of me.
Well, you're an expert in your own right. Could you tell us, maybe give us a little bit of your background?
Well, I think I'm the oldest of all these people. I think I was looking up Dr. Westman, and we might be the same age. So I won't rat you out, but I'm 64. And graduated 40 years ago from medical school. Been around a little bit. And I don't have a Puerto Rican accent as much as Dr. Berry doesn't have a Southern accent.
What accent?
So very short, my story is almost 2 years ago. I was almost in a wheelchair. I wasn't in a wheelchair, but almost in a wheelchair. A long list of medical problems. A year and a half ago, went strict keto. About a year ago, and a month almost, being carnivore, and have totally reversed hypertension, metoprolol 300 milligrams a day, gone. Lisinopril 40 milligrams a day, gone. I was using 300 units of insulin a day so I could have my rice and beans and viandas, if you know what that is, Dr. Berry.
Yes, I do.
I still use some insulin because my pancreas is tired of 29 years of pumping out insulin. My C-peptide is almost zero. All my antibodies are zero, but still not producing much insulin. So I still use a little bit of insulin. Also, I've spent 4 or 5 months at a time without using any insulin. Anyways, plantar fasciitis, eczema, chronic pain, lumbar spinal stenosis with neurogenic claudication. The back is still bad, but no pain. Spots of acanthosis nigricans gone. Stroke symptoms improve. I did have a stroke 6 years ago. Neuropathy symptoms improve. Vision improve. This week, Kerry, when we had the interview, I was still using my CPAP machine. I haven't used my CPAP machine for several days. And I had been on that machine for 30 years. Okay? 30 years. No longer has CPAP. My son, yesterday I was taking a nap. He came to tell me, no, and he realized I'm not even making noises. He said, okay. So he asked me when I woke up, are you using your machine? I said, no. So, I mean, I have so many other things. Yeah, that was.
That's old, right? We got to update that number, I think.
Yes, it's about 120 now. So yeah, the list is long. I read a Dr. Atkins book about 30 years ago, and I was so hook, line, and sinker on low carb, and I have been advising my patients low carb for 30, 35 years. I wasn't just following my own advice. And then a few years ago, I read another Dr. Atkins book, but I realized last year that it had been written not by Dr. Atkins, but by Dr. Westman.
Yeah.
So he didn't know. Has been a mentor of mine as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Nelson, for joining us. You got an incredible story. I'm hoping we could do a little roundtable now, and feel free, anyone, jump in and start talking. Dr. Berry, I guess my first question is, why do we need the ADS?
That's a great question. And I think Dr. Westman, who's been in this game way longer than I am, I'm a lot younger than him, he will tell you very quickly that I'm sure that his clinic at Duke University, very prominent university, I bet he hasn't gotten one penny of funding from Kellogg's or Pfizer or Eli Lilly or the National Institutes of Health. I bet he hasn't gotten much money at all from those people. And that's why I think the ADS is so important. And I think it's important that it be crowdfunded. Mm-hmm. It's actually in the articles of incorporation that both Dr. Tony and Dr. Hampton Westman have read. We will never take a penny from Big Food or Big Pharma. If Kellogg sends us a check for $100,000, we'll rip it up and we'll mail it back to them with a nice little yellow Post-it note that says, roll this up and stick it up your, because they've hurt enough people. We don't want to take their money because we know their money comes with strings attached. And so to create a crowdsource American Diabetes Society that's funded by regular folks, people who have reversed their type 2 diabetes. And they're like, you know what? That means so much to me. I used to have a $35 copay for each one of those medications I was on. I'm gonna donate $35 a month to the ADS. I used to give it to the pharmacy. Now I'm going to give it to somebody who's going to teach everybody in the world with type 2 diabetes how to reverse it. And then they can donate their copay that they used to pay for their medicine, and so on and so on. And so we've already raised over $100,000. I don't know what it's up to now, but keep in mind, everyone, the American Diabetes Association has a $100 million per year budget, because they're very friendly with Kellogg's and with Eli Lilly, and they get lots of big $1 million checks from them, and they're happy to take them with strings attached. They don't care, and that's why their messaging to people with type 2 diabetes is so diluted. They're like, well, I mean, potatoes are a good source of potassium. Okay. Bananas, that's a great source of potassium, and just completely ignoring the sugar in these things and the starch that breaks down into sugar. You're either an idiot, or you can look up what's the carb count of a Irish potato and how much of that carbohydrate is starch, and what happens to that starch. If you've got a degree in biology, biochemistry, chemistry, this stuff's not hard to figure out. So the fact that the American Diabetes Association seems to just not know what in the world we're talking about is a bit worrisome, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
if I can, thank you so much for having me. And it's coming back to me now. So I'm past president of the Obesity Medicine Association, meaning the doctors who help people lose weight and reverse diabetes. But it's now become, well, it always was a medicine organization. But someone said to me once that you get an MD and a DO or a DO to be able to prescribe medicine. I mean, and it hit me that because what we're doing doesn't need medicine. You don't need a medical degree. Don't go to a doctor for this advice. They've been, as we've heard already, they've been instructed and taught how to use prescriptions or procedures, that sort of thing. But so I, in all naivete, yeah, I'm a pretty naive guy, but I'm learning, optimist at heart. The Obesity Medicine Association, there was this doctor who wanted to create the Obesity Treatment Foundation, a nonprofit arm of the Obesity Medicine Association. And it was at the end of his career. He wanted to give back. And so I was a part of the Obesity Treatment Foundation. Well, the Obesity Medicine Association is a group of medical doctors who, many of them are in this, they have a certain lifestyle they need to kind of keep up and all. And it doesn't make sense to these doctors to create a nonprofit foundation to help obesity. And so they held the Obesity Treatment Foundation to the same standard that they would a company. And they said, if you haven't made money by 2 years and you're not self-sufficient, we're going to cut the Obesity Treatment Foundation. And they did. So the Obesity Medicine Association started a nonprofit foundation. I mean, back then there were millions of dollars in the bank of this medical organization. It's not like it was, poor. And yet the doctors who are in charge now, and I know them, and they're very good people to be in this space, but it didn't occur to them that maybe a foundation needs funding and support to help people and be to a nonprofit. So doctors aren't going to understand necessarily what a nonprofit does, what it is, and that is so why the American Diabetes Society is so important. And it has to be grassroots funded, and it has to be transparent. Doctors are taught to prescribe drugs. And the American Diabetes Association, a lot of doctors involved there, are going to prescribe drugs. And so I've been in charge of and trying to start organizations try to start a business where we ask doctors to do this in their clinics. It was it was too early. And I don't know that it'll ever happen. Well, that's right. Doctors, we get an MD and a DO to learn how to write prescriptions, right? That's so no one else is going to do this. It's up to us to fund this, to support it, to have. I saw some. I'm able to read the chats. I'm sorry I can't get in and chat tonight, but these commercials on TV just they kill me. They have these drugs with jingles, and they're getting into the music that I knew as a kid, which is just getting subliminal into, oh, it's nice, it's happy to have diabetes and be on these drugs. No. Anyway, it's really great to be here and to be a part of this. And nobody else is going to do it but us. And the stories, oh my gosh, these are real stories. These are stories I see every day in my clinic. And because I'm a busy doctor, I don't put out all of this. And then Duke is very, how should I say, conservative in the way I can use patient information. So people might, why don't you do this kind of stuff? Well, because actually I get flack if people are able to be identified without sort of confidential forms and all this. And, I don't have staff to do all of that. But these are all real stories that I went back and learned from Dr. Atkins. There was a couple comments about him. He died in 2003, slipped on the ice in New York City. And I asked him to fund our research. So a doctor was funding this first research on the low carb Atkins induction, it was called. So yes, so the Atkins theories and the clinic, the first phase of Atkins is a keto type of diet, allowing for 2 cups of leafy greens, 1 cup of a non-starchy vegetable. So it's very low in vegetable matter. So I call it carnivore-ish, so it's PhD diet-ish. So these are all very close. And even then, I've learned from using this in my clinic that I don't enforce the greens and the vegetables anymore, especially if people tell me that the greens and the vegetables make their stomach hurt or give them hives or other sorts of problems. But the idea of keeping carbs down and having ketones around is actually growing in the science, and we're following that very carefully. But we can't wait for the science, can't wait for NIH or other pharma organizations or the American Diabetes Association. They're never going to say cut the carbs. They'll want you to eat the carbs and take the pills. So anyway, I love to spend my time here and help in any way I can.
Absolutely. A question I had for maybe all of you good doctors is, what sort of trends are you seeing with type 2 diabetes or diabetes? I know, like Dr. Hampton, you've been practicing for 30 years now. How are things going? What sort of trends are we seeing?
Well, for me, it's people are my biggest problem is that people shouldn't have to go to YouTube to learn this stuff. It's really frustrating when you're in a large health system which touches millions of lives, and it takes like 5-6 months to see me because they're desperate to find a doctor who either kind of is comfortable with this approach, talks about things other than medicine, and gets results. And you shouldn't have to wait 6 months to see a doctor, nor should you have to go to YouTube. So I think one of the reasons why I'm in a large health system is because I think that the impact may be greater beyond the grassroots movement that we have created on YouTube and elsewhere. So I'm kind of hopeful that by being a leader and a doctor in a large health system, I can help move the needle in a way that will then inspire my organization. But beyond that, other organizations, you will save the insurers and the patients a ton of money if you take $1,000 medicine like Ozempic, and imagine what you can do with $1,000. You can pay for coaching, you can pay for group classes, you can pay for nutrition professionals properly trained to support people. Imagine, wouldn't that make more sense? And this is a medicine and others like Jardius, et cetera, that don't really get to the root cause of the problem. So do I see things moving in the right direction? Well, yes, because we have those large organizations, like I mentioned earlier, who are saying it's an option. But what I'm not seeing is that people are responding to that. We still have a DASH diet as the primary tool that's given out to our patients by the clinicians in these health systems. So there's a gap between where we are and where we need to go. And most clinicians are still focused on what is the research on the medicine saying. And then once they hear that research, i.e. Jardius, then everybody on the freaking planet needs to be on this medicine, just like the statins, just like the Ozempics. And that is not going to solve any problem. So we need to live in a world where we recognize if we don't deal with the root cause, our health system can't even afford to continue to fund this nonsense. So my hope is that by being reasonably respectful and say, here, guys, here's another approach. Let's at least do some research in those various health systems. Let's do some pilots. And we are going to save a ton of money. In fact, a lot of these health systems, by the way, are accountable to the care of the employees. So let's do some research like Dr. Tro has done in those industrial companies, and we will see what we can do with this dietary approach. And if we save you money, will you then be willing to then cascade that out to more people? So I think there's hope, but the model that we currently live in is always going to have the advantage, as Dr. Kinberry has suggested, because they have the money. And until we remove the influence of that money, we will continue to have to fight, which is why I think this society is going to be so important. A society is going to be able to literally provide the education that we're not willing to provide in a conventional model, a society that's willing to provide recipes and lifestyle opportunities that, again, it's okay to get it from YouTube. We've done a lot of work in that space. But wouldn't it be nice to say this society, which may be more respected by those who need to hear that name, they can then say, well, the society says that this dietary approach is safe and effective. So I think that as we earn the respect of our colleagues, we're going to have a huge impact on the care in this country. And again, we need to put that money towards something else that'll help our patients stay healthy.
Absolutely. Dr. Berry, here's a question. If everyone adhered to a proper human diet, would type 2 diabetes exist?
No. Type 2 diabetes, as officially defined in the medical journals, would effectively cease to exist if every single human on the planet ate a proper human diet. And for those who don't know, a proper human diet is somewhere between low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore, and even the Lion diet for a few select people. There would not be any such thing as type 2 diabetes. And I think we'll see as years go by that more and more healthcare professionals are going to start referring to type 2 diabetes as carbohydrate toxicity syndrome or carbohydrate overdose syndrome, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Dr. Nelson, what are you seeing in your 40 years working in terms of trends in diabetes?
Well, when I first graduated from medical school, started residency, the number of diabetic patients, type 2 diabetes, was not that many. And every time we had, in residency, I remember every time we had a newly diagnosed diabetic, which at the time, by the way, was a fasting blood sugar over 140, not the 126 years later. But we would refer to the endocrinologist for an evaluation at least. Nowadays, any primary care provider who does not know how to manage diabetes should really find another profession, because the numbers have exponentially increased. I mean, it's this week I can, without even checking records, I have seen probably 60% of the patients with diabetes and maybe 70-80% of the patients either pre-diabetes or fatty liver, which is a pandemic. As you know, as much as diabetes, fatty liver, I see more cases of cirrhosis and transplants from fatty liver nowadays, non-alcoholic, than I used to see from alcohol. So the numbers have grown exponentially.
What advice, Dr. Berry, what advice would you give to someone that was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and they're confused because there's so much information out there that's incorrect? How would you guide someone?
I would tell them to focus and to listen only to Dr. Hampton, Dr. Westman, and to me and Dr. Vasquez. That literally don't listen to any other doctor on the face of the planet, because one of these 4 doctors will completely reverse your type 2 diabetes. Then you won't have it anymore, and then it'll be gone, and then you'll be back to normal, and you won't have it anymore. Oh, I said that already, didn't I? So who was our friend earlier who has diabetes and is legally blind? I forgot his name.
Dave.
Here's why we have to fight, all of us, everybody watching, all 349 and every doctor on the ADS board. Dave, what do you think it would be worth to Dave if we could go back in time when he was first diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and there was a Dr. Westman video, or Dr. Westman's page 4 handout, or my video, or Dr. Hampton's video? What do you think he would give if he could see normally? So I have no doubt that the American Diabetes Association, in the next 10, 15, or 20 years, they're going to come around. They've already got it in their official guidelines way back in the back. They're going to come around, but how many Daves are going to lose their vision between now and then? Right? How many diabetics are going to lose a limb? How many are going to be on dialysis? How many are going to die? How many grandmothers and grandfathers are we going to lose? Hey, Nisha, I mean, that I cannot cope with that. I can't tolerate that. I can't wait 20 years for these people to find help. And that's why I do what I do every day. And I know that Hampton and Westman and Vasquez, that's the exact same reason they're doing this. These people don't have 20 years. And so we've got 350 folks watching right now. If every single one of them donated a copay, what's your copay at the pharmacy? If we've helped you get off of medicine, donate that to the ADS. Pay it forward. Say thank you. That's literally that kind of just small donation. That's what's going to help us. There's how many tens of thousands of Daves are out there right now, right on the cusp of losing their vision permanently for the rest of their life. They will be blind forever if we don't reach them.
You know, Kerry, if I can insert, thanks, Ken, that's perfectly said. Can you put a human face, please, on all the suffering from diabetes? I mean, you know, Dr. Fung, massive popular, he's a nephrologist who didn't want to just dialyze people because the diabetes killed their kidneys. So he asked, why do people get dialysis? It's diabetes. Can you put a face on? So it's hard for me to call out my other doctor friends who ignore reversing diabetes and have all of these. They have, you know, I guess with Ken, with your language, they have blood on their hands, basically. That they're watching their patients get blind and beyond dialysis. And a recent recurring patient to me only came back because he lost 2 of his toes. The other doctor said, oh, you're fine. Your A1C is 7, you're on medicine, and he gets to eat all the food he wants. He came back to me with a tail between his legs because he lost 2 of his toes. You know, so, but it's hard for me to, well, okay, Ken can do this, but as an academic, but you could do this with a movie or with the sidebars of go to a dialysis center and or the blind ophthalmologist and just talk to people about how they got there. What were they eating? Did anyone ever tell them that eating the carbs and taking the medicine would lead to dialysis and blindness and heart disease? You got to include that in there. And no, nobody is telling these folks that taking the medicine will lead to these outcomes. And that, as Ken's saying, is a tragedy, and yet, millions die, so it's a statistic. But if you put a face on, here's what happens if you follow these other doctors' advice, it's kind of hard for us to, it's hard for me to say that in my situation.
Well, let me just briefly comment. In my situation, I'm like you, Dr. Westman. I'm in a large health system, and I have to be thoughtful about what I say when I'm on YouTube. But I will say this: I am a little disappointed that I will have a patient, as the example I gave, whose microalbumin got better, whose creatinine got better, and that patient would then have a conversation with their nephrologist, and they're like, "Oh, that's great, you're doing great," but in no way are they curious how they did it. If that's your your whole job is to help people deal with their kidneys, and you see miracles happen right in front of you, and you're not curious how that happened, and you were curious, Dr. Westman, when you saw changes, and that's what spiked your interest and led to you doing what you had to do. And I had a patient recently come in, and I asked a very simple question: how is it going? Because they were already on dialysis. And what she said to me was that I only have one good day, and the only good day she has is on Sunday. She said the day of dialysis, the day before dialysis, I feel horrible. So the only day I don't feel horrible is on Sunday, because I have it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The amount of time she has to spend, and I will say directly, inconveniencing is what she used. So I inconvenience my family to get me back and forth to dialysis. It's at least a 6-hour process, 3 days a week. So now she's lost 18 hours. She doesn't feel good. And yeah, we do have the ports and things, but it's still a needle being poked in your body. So it's a little discomfort. The emotions and the depression that people experience is incredibly off the chain. The amount of money we spend on dialysis is, you literally see so many dialysis, you see just as many dialysis units as, and if you're in the inner city, you see churches, you see liquor stores, you see dialysis units. I'm not trying to be funny. It's just a big business situation. And I'll be honest, you make more money if a person's on dialysis than if they're not on dialysis. So there's a whole conflict of interest with that. So I think that what we're trying to do is ask a patient in front of us, you have a doctor who's saying, we're going to try to slow this down with the medicine, but ultimately your kidneys are going to fail. And then you have another group of doctors saying, we can reverse this. So when you think about that, who do you really want to listen to? So that's my call. My call to action is for the people who hear us who are patients. Wouldn't you want to give the doctor who is giving you hope a chance versus the doctor who says there is no hope? And at least roll those dice in Vegas and see what happens. That way you have a chance.
Yep. Absolutely. I think Dr. Westman is reconnecting here. One thing from my perspective, I'm not a doctor, I'm a layman. I have always thought, I have family and friends that have had type 2 diabetes. And my perception of it has always been, this is an affliction, an ailment. This is something wrong with their genetics, that they got this thing. And now they have sort of this excuse, like there's something wrong with the way my body handles insulin. There's nothing I can do about it. So I guess I'm just wondering, is the ADS, is it going to help educate people too? Because it seems like that's a common misconception. Until I saw Dr. Barry's reversing type 2 diabetes video that has like 3,000 comments of people saying, I did what you said and it saved my life over and over and over again. until I saw that video, I didn't realize that you could even reverse type 2 diabetes. I thought it was a thing you had forever. So it seems like a big part of it is just educating people that this isn't something you're stuck with. This isn't a life sentence for you.
Yeah, and we have two registered dietitians, Michelle Hearn and Temple Stewart, who are going to be, they're already working on recipes. And so there will be an entire recipe section on the ADS website. There will be position statements where we will send out to medical organizations. Hopefully we will raise enough money to be able to support and encourage research into ketogenic and carnivore diets for type 2 diabetes and other conditions. But yeah, there's going to be so much information. We're going to use Dr. Unwin's spoons of sugar diagram that we're going to literally, that's going to be sent to every doctor's office in the world, so that at least we've made the effort, because I think Dr. Hampton's frustration is evident, and it's also well placed. And like you said, Kerry, you know, I didn't even know you could reverse type 2 diabetes. Well, the average patient shouldn't know that. That's not your job. But the average doctor absolutely should know that. And that's one of the primary goals of the ADS, is to make sure that every doctor has received this information, either in the form of literature they get in the office, or an email, or they've been tagged on social media. And we've all seen the power of social media. If enough patients tag their doctor in something, they're going to take a look at it eventually, because they're going to get tired of getting tagged until they say, yep, I got it. I understand this now. I can reverse type 2 diabetes now. Shut up and leave me alone. But really, as a watchdog and as a hound dog, just barking at the heels of all of the big medical organizations saying, hey, you can reverse type 2 diabetes. And if anybody follows me on Twitter, they see me do this on a daily basis. When WebMD says something ignorant, or the American Diabetes Association, the AHA, or if Eli Lilly and the other big pharmaceutical companies are increasingly not tweeting at all, because they know that me or one of the low carb doctors is going to jump on their ass immediately, and they're going to get ratioed. And so they in Big Food and Big Pharma have almost stopped tweeting things. They used to try to tweet little cute things, but they've stopped that now, because we jump on them pretty quick. But just making the knowledge that type 2 diabetes can be reversed ubiquitous. That is the primary goal of the American Diabetes Society.
Is this something, Dr. Berry, that you're very passionate about because of all the things you've done videos of over the years? Is it true that type 2 diabetes is one of the things that's easier to reverse? Like, I've interviewed people on my channel. I interviewed this one guy, and he was like, I suffered from type 2 diabetes for 12 years, was taking all this medication. I went on carnivore diet, and it was like a couple weeks. He said it was simple for him in that case. He was mad. He was frustrated.
Yep. It's literally carbohydrate overdose syndrome. That is what type 2 diabetes is. And so if you name it that and call it that, then the solution becomes immediately apparent, doesn't it? You're like, oh, just remove the carbs, or maybe just lower the carbs. Maybe that's all I have to do. And then recheck an A1C every 3 months. And there you go. You can see the progress as you go. And yeah, the type 2 diabetes is something that's probably the thing I'm most passionate about. I'm most pissed off about it. Let's just use plain words here, because this is something that's so simple to reverse, so simple to cure, whichever terminology you want to use. Like Kerry mentioned, the 3,000 comments on my reverse type 2 diabetes. A lot of those people will be like, you're full of crap. And then the same person comes back a year later and like, nope, you're right. I tried it. It works. Yeah. And so it's so damaging. It's so destructive to human health, type 2 diabetes. It literally destroys you from the inside out, both physically and mentally. It destroys families. Do you think the lady you were talking about, do you think her family is just so eager and happy to have to take her to dialysis 3 days a week? No, they're probably poor. They've got a job. They've got family. They got stuff to do. I promise you that woman does not want to be a burden to her family. She does not want that, but she can't help it. She's stuck now, right? The vernacular, you would say she's screwed. It's too late now. But what if we could go back in time? The problem is we don't have a time machine, but what we can do is start right now today and say, I'm not going to let another day go by that there's a type 2 diabetic out there that does not know that they can reverse this. Now, everybody's a grown human. If they're like, yeah, I get it, I can reverse it, but I don't care, I'm going to eat the ding dongs. Fine, go be you, do you. That's fine. But I would say don't expect your family to have a lot of pity, because they're all going to know that you could have reversed this and you didn't. But for any patient out there who doesn't know you can reverse type 2 diabetes, then I have failed at my job. Every time one of those pops up, I'm like, I got to make more videos. I got to be louder. I've got to be on social media more, because there's no reason that somebody with type 2 diabetes at this point has not heard at least once that you can reverse that with dietary changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So those of you listening, you can't unring this bell once you hear this sort of thing, because unfortunately, a lot of people will wait until they hit rock bottom, or they get so sick that they're doing it out of desperation. But in this case, you may lose your vision forever, or you may amputate your foot, irreversible things. So let's check in here. Alia Wells, how's it going with the fundraising?
It's going great. Thank you. We have 1,200. We've made $1,200 tonight. With my math, that's 4,800 we need. No, 3,800. 3,800 to go, everyone. 4,800 is fine also. Thank you, everyone who's donating. It really means a lot, and it's going to help so much. Like every dollar, just consider that is a life saved. So please consider that when you dig deep into your hearts and into your wallets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I have to, let me say something real quick, Kerry. I just want to emphasize something that I tried to emphasize during that brief intro presentation. If you fix diabetes, you're going to fix 70% of all of these so-called chronic medical conditions that we face.
Yes.
So yes, can you get off blood pressure medicines? Yeah, because you don't have that constriction and inflammation that you had before you adopted this dietary pattern. Do you have a young lady in your life that has polycystic ovarian disease? Can you reverse that? Yes, you can reverse that with this dietary pattern. Can you greatly reduce your risk for a heart attack or stroke? And if you have early dementia, can you really put that back into remission? Absolutely. So there are, in fact, when I meet at I think my topic for the Symposium for Metabolic Health in San Diego is going to really speak to all of those other conditions that you're not even thinking about. It's such a long list of conditions, and we're going to touch on some of the conditions that you don't even think about. If you fix this one thing, that high insulin, high glucose problem, you're going to fix a lot of things. So that reversibility, exactly. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. That's quite cute. You're going to reverse a ton of stuff. So I just want people to hear that. And maybe you're not going to focus on those things because you don't make the connection. But when you start to notice my headache's gone, my stomach feels better, my mental clarity is all good, all of those things will happen. So yes, you won't have diabetes anymore, but you're going to have a list of other things that you also won't have.
Thank you, Dr. Hampton. We have one more quick video to share here. This is Mark, overcame type 2 diabetes. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Mark. About 3 years ago, I weighed up to 280 pounds and had all sorts of health issues going on. I've been to the doctors, I've been diagnosed that I had gout, I had extremely high fluctuating blood pressure. I was put on 4 lots of medications for the blood pressure, only to find out I also had type 2 diabetes. That explained a lot. So I was put on another 2 lots of medications, metformin being one of them, I can't remember the other. And anyway, over the next few months, I progressively seemed to get worse and worse. I decided to go back to the doctor and I said, look, I want to get off these medications. I'd looked into doing a ketogenic diet, done the ketogenic diet for 4 months. The doctor was happy with the progress. I'd gone from a HbA1c, which was 107, and within the space of 4 months, I'd got that way down to 35. Well, I wasn't even pre-diabetic after that. I was amazed. I'd lost a load of weight. I'd lost around 50, 60 pounds in that time. Stayed on the ketogenic diet for just over a year. And I'd been looking into taking on the carnivore diet. Decided I'd give it a go, give it 30 days. I've now been doing the carnivore, approaching up to about 7-8 months by the time I'd got it going. Well, what can I say? Life changed immeasurably. I'm now down 100 pounds. Every single health condition I'd had, everything I'd had. I've been suffering from depression. I'd have problems with my gums bleeding when I'd actually brushed. On the carnivore diet, that's gone. No more food cravings, endless amounts of energy. Other than that, I don't touch any vegetables, any fruit. Everything that was wrong. No more swollen ankles. No more knees. I'm a decorator. I presume that the reason my knees were ballooned up was after 25, 30 years of decorating, crawling around on floors, painting. It wasn't. It was all down to carbohydrates and, processed oils, that kind of thing. It's changed my life. Thank you, Carnivore. Thank you, all the YouTubers. Thank you, Auntie Chaffee. Thank you, Canberry. I can't believe that everything we seem to be told to eat, everything we seem to be told to do, it would have been better if we'd done the complete opposite to the advice that medical people have given us. If what I say and what I do here can help one person see a better way of life, see a better way to improve their health, their conditions, any ailments that they've got, it was worth it.
All right, there we go.
Huzzah.
Those stories that they always have this urgency, this need to they just want to be told so bad. It never gets old. So do you guys have a couple minutes we could do check a few of the questions from the audience?
Sure.
All right, here we go. We got a few. Let's see here. Our buddy Homesick Buckeye Russ. Shout out to two of my favorite docs. Doc Westman is the OG. Thank you, Russ. We got another one from Russ. Shout out to my main man, Dr. Barry. Love the guy, but his books have too many words and not enough pictures. Russ is awesome. Thank you, Russ. Carnivore Brothers, part 1 of 2. Knowing what I know now about how impactful the proper human diet was for me, reversing type 2 diabetes, lose 70 pounds, and have more energy and feel fantastic, and every side effect of PhD has been positive. Surely, with all the vast amounts of research, there is medicine out there that can give me the same results, right? Question mark?
Not without a 10-page list of possible side effects, and you'd probably have to take 4 separate medications, right, doctors? And there would be 15 pages of potential side effects.
Yeah.
I love, Kerry, that you pointed out the urgency. Our friend from Australia or New Zealand, I couldn't tell which, but just he wants to help people. Have you ever seen anything like this before? That a way of eating makes people care about their fellow man and woman, and literally makes them want to reach out to strangers at the supermarket and say, "Hey, I looked in your cart. You got to put some of that back. That stuff's gonna hurt you." I think it's the true test of human nature. We want to be good. We want to help. We want to help our tribe. And in today's society with social media, we're all one big tribe. We all have the potential to literally know anybody else on this planet. And we want to help people. We want to help our friends and neighbors and family. And that shows. And I think that when you eat a proper human diet, your mental health improves and your attitude and your emotional health improves to the point where that innate human goodness inside you, it has a chance to come out. And you're just like, man, I feel so much better. Who can I share this with? And I just think that's the most beautiful thing.
I agree 100%. We filmed 27 people for the documentary, and you go into these things with expectations, but one thing I've learned is all 27 people have this overwhelming sense of gratitude. They're like, I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful. And I think part of it too is people getting a second chance at life. They get excited. They want to talk about that with other people, and we have that in common with each other. But yeah, it's the most incredible thing for sure. Carnivore Sissa, thank you. We got quite a few thank yous. Thank you for the super chats. Any super chats that come to my channel are getting donated directly to the ADS. So don't do the super chats. Go on the GoFundMe. Vera, so thankful for all of you. We got a new member, Brown Eyed Meat Eater. Thank you. What is the American Diabetes Society donation link? We have it in the description of my channel, and we'll post it. We've been posting it here. So,
Yep. And let me just add, Kerry, that the ADS website should be up in about 2 weeks. With the nonprofit 501c3 has already been formed. The articles of incorporation have already been established and sent into the federal government. We have an EIN, we have a bank account, we have an attorney. And so all of that stuff is moving in the background. We've already set up social media channels on 3 different social medias, and we're gonna try to have an ADS account on every single social media, because just like a bank robber robs banks because that's where the money is, the ADS is going to be on all social media because that's where people are. They're out there looking for entertainment or news or knowledge or kitten videos or how to reverse type 2 diabetes. You never know what they're looking for. And so just in case they are looking for better health, the ADS is going to be there to offer them an option. And I've got to jump out of here and go put these babies to bed. Nisha needs some help. I appreciate the work you guys are doing. I cannot wait to see the Healing Humanity documentary. I'm so thankful to have colleagues like these good doctors around me here. I couldn't be in better company. I don't deserve to be in this company, but I cherish it so much. The relationships I have with these doctors and Kerry and all you guys. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Dr. Berry. Appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Everybody watching, $5. $5. That's all we need. $5. Come on, you can do that.
Bye, Dr. Berry.
All right,
Bye,
see you
Dr.
later.
Dr. Berry.
We got Dwight Garlow, 20 HomesteadHow memberships. Thank you so much, Dwight. Every membership I get on my site goes 100% towards the documentary. We really appreciate that. Huge shout out to Dwight Garlow too. For those that don't know, Dwight's become a good friend of mine, but I met him through Jeff DeProsperous, who's on a journey to be cancer-free. We filmed him for a documentary, and Dwight is the one that taught Jeff everything he knows about fasting and cancer as a metabolic disease, and he put him on to Professor Seafried, and Dwight is a life changer for sure. Incredible. The world needs more Dwight Garlows for sure. Carnivore Cured, Todd Bachnis, $20. Thank you. He said, my dad had type 2 for 25 years, ended up on dialysis, sores all over his body. My pre-diabetes was gone in 3 months. Wow. All right. I think we had a couple questions here. Here's one for Dr. Westman, or maybe a statement. I love Dr. Westman's quote that says, a lot of people are on medications to treat the foods they eat. Whenever I repeat this quote to a patient, you just see a light bulb go off. That is a good one.
That's a good one. And yeah, a lot of the things I know, I don't make up these quotes, but I take the best quotes from other people and use them.
Robin Heron, Carnivorous Grandma, a good friend of the channel, has a question. Can a person get a CGM without a prescription?
So at the moment they can't, but it's coming. I believe Dexcom 7 will come out with a over-the-counter version. I don't think it's going to be covered by insurance because right now it's so difficult to get even the people with insurance to get them, but it's probably going to happen.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Doctor.
there are like I agree 100. My wife's a pharmacist, so she's always reminding me. But there's a few organizations, like I think one called THEIA, THEIA Health. It's all online, and I think the problem with that model is that a lot of my patients are seniors, and all this online stuff makes them nervous. But there are ways to get it that way. The problem is it's still a little bit of a barrier. Because you may be looking at, $150 or $200 a month out of pocket. And if that's in your budget, that's a possibility. But I agree, the pharmacy should be having those direct to consumers very soon.
Thank you, Dr. Hampton. Before I go to the next question, I just want to shout out again these good doctors. I have a link in the description for each of them. They all have got wonderful YouTube channels. Dr. Westman, love your YouTube channel. Dr. Nelson, you're just starting, right?
Have almost no social media presence, but there's one video uploaded on my channel. I will be putting out more because I want to share with everybody. Diabetes can be reversed, and so can almost 30 other conditions. Doing the same thing.
Yeah. And shout out Dr. Hampton too. Wonderful, wonderful YouTube channel. Question actually looks like a comment. Thank you to the panel for all of your hard work. Question from Bob. I'm type 2, been carnivore since 1/1/24 on Synjardy using CGM hovering 80s when on meds. If I stop for a week closer to high 90s, low 100s, is that normal or should I be lower? Adam, you want to take this one?
I think I'll defer to Dr. Westman.
Well, so I was going to defer to Dr. Hampton, but no. So I allow for people to have blood glucoses of 90 to 100 to 110, 120 even off medicines if they're not eating carbohydrates. And the reason for that is it's not just the blood sugar that is causing the damage. It's the carbs that you're eating and you're burning and oxidizing. That is the major source of damage in my view. So I would advise, if you were my patient and all the other things, it's really hard to be a doctor over the internet and confidently say, but if the only parameter here is, should I take a medicine to lower my blood glucose by 10 points and risk the side effects of it while I'm not eating carbohydrates, I would advise, no, don't take the medicine. But that's, hard to know in the context of everything else going on. Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, I think what I've seen is that if a patient has had diabetes for years, they, in theory, are more insulin resistant. If a patient is obese and they haven't really lost all the weight yet, then it may take a little longer for them to get into those tighter ranges. I tell patients, don't sweat the little things. Sometimes we listen to the people on social media and they're celebrating their A1Cs being at, 4 this and I just think that's really worrying about, you're barking up the wrong tree. The key is, where were you previously and where are you now? And never look at one metric to determine your success. So rather you're looking at your abdominal circumference and the belt's getting looser, we celebrate that. Is your blood pressure better? We celebrate that. Are the other things we measure for metabolic health better, whether it's your, triglycerides to HDL ratio, or even those fancier tests like the fasting insulin or the apoprotein beta A ratio? If those things are getting better, I will not sweat one or two things not being ideal. And I think that more global perspective will help people. Because if you stress out about it, guess what? That's going to raise your sugar too. And I think you're stressing about the wrong thing. So if you see improvement in the majority of the things we care about, then you should celebrate that. And as long as you have the behavior of success, which Dr. Eric Westman has suggested is keeping the carbs low, then the little nuances of that are not to worry about. And just keep in mind that there are instances where a carnivore may notice that their A1C is a little higher than they anticipated. And we're still trying to figure out why that's true. Always know that the metrics for a keto or carnivore diet may be a little different than the standard of care. So rather we're just, having a healthier hemoglobin that lives longer, or, some other reason for this, is not a reason to lose sleep. As long as you're doing the right thing and moving towards the goal. And periodically you'll have a little bit of a stall and your body's recalibrating, and that's okay as well.
A comment about this particular medication, it's a combination medication, includes an SGLT2, and with ketogenic diets, you have to be careful because there is such a thing as euglycemic ketoacidosis, which could be so you need to talk to your doctor about maybe keeping the metformin and getting the other one off. We're not your doctor, so we cannot suggest treatments.
Yeah, I had been practicing and studying using low-carb keto diets for 15 years and never saw ketoacidosis in my practice until these medicines came out. And I get a call from someone, he said he had just been hospitalized for ketoacidosis. And I said, well, what happened? And he was put on the SGLT2 inhibitor, which can cause ketoacidosis on any diet, let alone increase the risk on a keto diet. Plus, it also puts sugar in the urine and infections like sugar in the urine as well. So you might be getting urinary tract infections from the SGLT2 inhibitors. These are Jardiance, Invokana, what's the third one out there?
Farxiga.
Farxiga, yeah. So yeah, this is kind of like the darling darling medicine though of heart failure doctors currently, because there is a study that it can prevent recurrence. But in the Virta Health study, this is the diabetes reversal company in Silicon Valley. Jeff Volek and Steve Finney are the academics who helped to start Virta. They kept people on the SGLT2 inhibitors, but they had people measuring their ketones carefully. So if you're monitoring ketones, you'll see the ketones go up if you get ketoacidosis. In my clinic, I don't recommend people to measure ketones, and not even urine, and it works great if you keep the carbs really low. So I prefer to stop those medicines at the beginning, explain why, and thank you for bringing that up. These are the drugs these days are so toxic, you know. Even the obesity medicine ones that are out there now, the Zepbound, Mounjaro, Ozempic, and Saxenda, and Wegovy, and yes, they work, but the side effects can be really, really tough. And if you don't learn about the food, you're going to lose the weight, reverse the diabetes with the drug, and then you're just going to regain it all back, sadly. So learn about how the food affects diabetes and weight, and you'll be set for life.
Wonderful. So if you guys have any questions, we have a little bit of time left for the good doctors. We have one more sort of inspiring story here. This is Tony's type 2 diabetes story. Here we go.
Hey guys, I want to say thank you very much for having me on and to hear my journey. So I am a type 2 diabetic, or I want to say I was a type 2 diabetic. I was taking diabetic medicine. Now I've had diabetes for quite some time, quite a few years. And it's always been a real struggle and very stressful. I mean, when you look at what the American Diabetic Association has, it's only talking about how to live with it. I didn't know you could overcome it. But you know, how to manage it and things like that. And it was always so stressful and frustrating. Every time I would either talk to somebody else or talk to a doctor and try to figure out why my numbers were so bad. And I want to say I had an A1C of 11.8. All right. So that's high. And it's been higher, but just this past February, it was 11.8. But I started the carnivore diet. Now I'm on day 90 right now. But when I started, it was almost 2 days after I got started with carnivore. I took my blood sugar. So here's my meter. So that morning I woke up, I came over. This is 2 days after starting, and I checked my blood sugar, and it was 71. It's never been 71 before in my life, right? So usually I would have numbers in the morning of 175, 150, and that's after fasting for 12 hours. So it was always high. And to see that 71, I was amazed. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm on to something. So I was supposed to take my diabetic shot, the Ozempic, once a week shot. That Wednesday, I had started on Monday, and I thought, oh, it's 71. I don't know if I should take that or not. So I did it. And I just kept monitoring my blood sugar, and it was good. And so by that Friday, going, what is that, 5 days, I decided to stop my once a day Jardians. Okay. So I was on two things, a shot and a pill, and along with some other medications like hydrochlorothiazide for water retention and things like that. But my numbers were so good, I stopped everything because I knew I had a blood test coming up on the blood test would be on day 46. And I have the results right here. I've actually got two results. So this is my A1C here. So 11.8 right there. You can see my A1C back in February, 11.8. And so I walk into the doctor's after a week from my blood test to get the results. So, we sat down and she looked at the computer results and looked at me and she said, "Wow, you are really doing good." That's the first time I ever heard my doctor say, "Wow, you're doing really good." And it's working. And I said, "Well, what is my A1C?" Because at this point, I'm really anxious to find out because I want to know what it is. I'm seeing the numbers from my meter, but I want to know the total result. So she goes, "It's 7.1." And I was like, "What?" So you can see it's 7.1. Now that's day 46. And she said, "Yes, keep doing what you're doing." And I'm like, "Well, I haven't taken my once a week Ozempic shot." And her jaw dropped. And then I said, "Well, I actually haven't taken any of my medication, my once a day diabetic pill or anything." And she said, "What? What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing carnivore." And so she was really amazed. And I want to say thank you so much just for just sharing that we don't have to maintain it. We don't have to deal with the stress of trying to figure out, well, does this work? Does that work? And things like that. I'm excited because they're not telling you that you can not just live without it, but you can eliminate it. And that's why I'm very excited about what you're doing, Dr. Berry, with the American Diabetic Society and making it aware that you don't have to just live with it. And you can eliminate it. And there are many, many testimonies like mine because someone had shared their testimony of getting off of their diabetic medicine with me just prior to me starting. And I'm so glad that they shared their story because I'm a benefit of their testimony. Yes. So thank you much. Stay tuned. I got another blood test coming up in October, and I can't wait to see. We're going to be lower than 7.1. All right. See ya.
All right. That was Tony. Hey, Tony was, I think, did an interview with Adam over at Carnivore Today, right, Adam? I think it's on Adam's channel now if anyone wants to hear more of his story, but man, he's got some good energy there. Why don't we check in real quick one more time with Alia, and then we'll take some final questions here. Alia, how's it going?
Great, thank you. We have made $1,800 tonight. I think that's pretty cool. I know we've got 20 minutes left, but I still think we could do the 5,000 by the end. We do have 500 people watching. It's $10 each. We're done. I'm going to keep saying that because that's the simple mathematics of it all.
Nice. Thank you, Alia.
Yep.
We got a question for Dr. Westman. How are we going to get ADS teaching in our med textbooks so that new providers are taught truth instead of ADA information like 7% A1C target and that ketosis is not ketoacidosis?
Yeah, that's a great question. The medical textbooks are, you have to know the right people and or write a new one. The ketogenic textbook that came out last fall, 2023, Ketogenic, the Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction. It was a huge effort, and there it is, and is one way to actually sort of start pushing into the medical systems and all. But I think we're going to have to come up with our own book, and that hopefully is going to be on the the docket, if you will, and the planning. But the theme, I think, should be: don't worry so much about. Tony, I know you're such an optimist like me, and 25 years ago, I thought this would be done in 5 years. We'd fix it. We'd all, and the harsh reality is time flies.
Yeah.
Especially with COVID and the pause on things there. But so I think this is grassroots, and yes, we can try to infiltrate medical textbooks. We have a course, an elective at Duke, where medical students can rotate through all of the obesity and diabetes programs, and so we teach maybe 10 students a year through, so it's not many there, but medical residents come through my office and learn about the keto diet. And I have to say, things have changed. I mean, medical students coming in now kind of vaguely remember, well, my parents were doing something, around 2003 is generally when it was, and they were in their youth, and so they're more open to the low carb ideas. But that echoes in my mind that doctors get MDs and DOs to be able to write prescriptions and do procedures. And so that's why I'm really going to be pushing toward non-medical answers. Now, people outside the medical world, because we change the food basically. And especially into prevention now, we really have to get into the schools, into the parents, the change before people develop these problems, while we can reverse things and make people better. Like these stories that we're hearing are awesome, and we see them, but we also need to prevent people from going down this pathway in the first place. But keep reminding us about that medical textbook.
That's right. There's another society, Kerry. When I said I was, we'll be speaking a place where Dr. Eric Westman has spoken, also the Symposium for Metabolic Health. It's the Society for Metabolic Health Practitioners that also has an outreach committee that I'm a part of. Part of the outreach goal is to not just outreach directly to the people, but to the medical organizations and to the medical schools, with the hope that one day you'll have doctors like myself, Dr. Eric Westman, Dr. Nelson, and others who are in front of the classrooms for the doctors who are in training, who rotate in our clinics. So it is kind of a grassroots effort, but I think these societies are helping to legitimize the work we're doing, and then that's going to then lead to us hopefully having opportunities to speak in these places. I'm being optimistic, Dr. Eric Westman, but hopefully by being a member of some of these organizations, and I'll say this: in my own organization, about a month ago, we have a diabetes symposium that's sponsored by Advocate Health, and yours truly has spoken to that group maybe 3 or 4 times. And the audience are clinicians, whether it's a pharmacist, a nutrition professional, or a doctor. And although I have to walk past a room full of industry to get to the podium, they do allow me to speak. And I'm very candid, very respectful, as you know, that's my approach. But I'm very candid about what I believe will help people. So they are hearing the message. And then hopefully, if we can get in front of that next generation who really went into medicine to heal, and if they just are given the tools to heal, their experience as clinicians and doctors will be so much better. So I am optimistic we'll get there, but it's going to really take us pushing this agenda forward and encouraging them to allow us to speak at these places.
Absolutely. Carnivore Nurse Kim, I'm tired of recovering patients from leg amputations that are 100% preventable. Yeah. Wow, when you really think about that too, leg amputations throughout history, think of like war or accidents or horrible things, but I wonder the statistics on the number of amputations nowadays that are entirely preventable. kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, from the food. The other comment I wanted to remind of the saying, borrowing from Dr. Robert Lustig about the food, is that good food is medicine. Bad food requires medicine. And that's it's also kind of a compromise out to let the other doctor, of course, other doctors are using medicine because people are eating bad food, they're eating junk foods, but the other doctors should tell their patients not to eat the junk foods too. But anyway, so good food is medicine. And this borrows from Hippocrates, who said, let food be thy medicine, ancient Greece. But they didn't have junk foods, I don't think, in ancient Greece. So he didn't add in bad food requires medicine. But that was a great quote I've heard through the years.
Yeah, that's another really good one. Here's a question from Trisha Grant. What do you think about these watches that read your blood glucose?
I've seen a couple, and my patients are testing them out. They're not bad, but they're not so good that you would adjust insulin on them. And I think that's why the regulatory folks are not endorsing them yet. That's the word I've heard.
Same here.
Yeah, so you can actually get a glucose watch from a different country that doesn't have to go through FDA, U.S. approval, and that's how some people get them. But I think FDA wants them to be perfect for blood glucose regulation. I would go with the CGMs that are the continuous glucose monitors that are going to be coming out over the counter at this point. And just in my smattering, maybe 5 patients have brought in these watches, and so it's not a big experience that I have.
All right. Zelda, Kerry, how about a 50-50 men and women representation? All the doctors with you tonight were men, and every guest was a man. There are women out there suffering, and women doctors make a huge difference in this area. I'm 100% on board. Open invitation anytime. In fact, before we started this, I reached out to Dr. Barry and said, could you just go out to your group so we could get some more women stories in here? And for one reason or another, we didn't have any, even with Dr. Barry reaching out to his huge community. Do you guys, Dr. Hampton, Dr. Westman, do you see that? Or Dr. Nelson too? Is it mostly men with type 2 diabetes? I know several people in my own family with type 2 diabetes, but we really did have trouble getting some stories on here.
Oh, no, it affects women, of course. It I think is well, I guess my first thought was Dr. Sue Wolver. I think of the female doctors. Dr. Sue Wolver at VCU in Richmond would be a great one to have representing the doctor side. No, that's an interesting thing. I have women who reverse their diabetes. Why don't, maybe they're camera shy? No, right. that can't be it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It was weird because we were really trying.
The truth is, in the office, I see more women with diabetes, but it's not because men don't get it. It's just men access healthcare a lot less.
Yeah. And I would when I mentioned Dr. Shani Sanghani in her book, she's an endocrinologist, and I think that she would be a good guest on. I just interviewed her for my podcast. I think she self-published her book. So when you do that, it requires a lot of effort to get the word out. And some of the publishers, because of the concerns about keto, which are, have been debunked, are still kind of hesitant to support a book like that. But I think she would be a good person, not only to have on a panel like this, but to maybe be interviewed and just give that exposure, because she wrote a book that's kind of simple.
What's her book?
It's in fact, what I'll do is I'll put it in the chat, but it is, I'm trying to get the exact title, and I'll pull it up in a second. But she's amazing. And let me just pull it up real quick and share it with you guys. But we need to make sure that because this is a grassroots effort, again, Dr. Westman has been doing, it's just really simple. It's called Turn Around Diabetes, the step-by-step guide to navigate type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. And when I saw that, I was very impressed because my wife has type 1, and they always get the that people don't focus on that because it's not as profitable. So I'll put that in the comments so people can see that, and I'll also link it on my channel because it's we need resources until the conventional model catches up to what we're doing, and it requires doctors to put stuff out there. People can start to heal themselves. And hopefully our doctors will be more curious about how they did it and then start to change how they teach their patients as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rebecca, one of Dr. Berry's coaches, said we had a really hard time finding women who have reversed diabetes. I guess I'll just leave this out there too. If you are a woman who's reversed type 2 diabetes, open invite on my channel. That's part of the reason we're doing this as well, is to find more stories for our documentary, different types of stories as well. So please do reach out to me. All right. Let's see here. I think we had one more question. Anthony asked, I just had blood work done. Everything looks good except BUN and BUN CR are over the max. Is that something to worry about? LDL is 566. Doctor is not going to be happy.
Yeah, I think it depends. So many moving pieces with this, right? So I've seen, like, if you start a pril medicine like lisinopril, enalapril, et cetera, sometimes that'll bump up the number a little bit. If you're a little dehydrated, that can bump up the number a little bit. If you're supplementing after you exercise with protein supplementation, that can bump up the number. So what we found is that if you look at some of the research done by our colleagues, and in particular, I'm thinking about Dr. David Unwin and his lovely wife in the UK. Over 7 years, he put a study out that made it very clear that with the low-carb dietary pattern, you can absolutely improve your kidney function, and particularly if you get it in the earlier stages. And I've seen people, just like the example I used earlier, where they had 4,000 microalbumin, and it goes back to normal over time. I've seen creatinines as high as 3.5 or so go back to 1 point something. So I always tell patients there's opportunities with this dietary pattern to really do what no medicine will ever do. The medicines may slow things down a little bit, but rarely do they start to heal you. So I would feel comfortable in continuing to follow, being cautious, but a slight bump up would not make me concerned, particularly the way he framed it, a little bit over, but it didn't sound like it was harmful. And then for that LDL, you may want to get the particle sizes to see if there's some information you can gather from that to determine, is that okay? Are you a lean mass hyperresponder, and all these other things that we're doing a lot of research on. And I think that it's likely that you'll find good news if you do those additional tests.
Thank you, Dr. Hampton. All right. Well, it's about that time. Let's check in with Alia once more. Alia, how's it going as we wrap things up here tonight?
We just hit 2,550, and I want to say thank you so much to everybody who donated tonight. But Dwight Garlow just dropped $500.
Wow,
so that had to
Dwight.
be shouted out. Thank you, Dwight.
Very cool. That's amazing.
Dwight's incredible. Thank you so much, Dwight. Thank you, everyone that donated. Thank you for everyone that participated, especially our good doctors here, Dr. Tony Hampton, Dr. Nelson, Dr. Westman, Dr. Ken Berry. There's links in the description for each one of those. Do you guys want to mention anything else or shout anything else out where people can find you before we wrap things up? Maybe start with Dr. Westman.
Well, I'm at Duke University with a clinic. If you can't make it to the clinic, I have the Adapt Your Life Academy that gives information through a company format to those who can't make it.
Thank you, Dr. Westman. Dr. Nelson?
At the moment, just at the real Dr. Nelson on YouTube. We'll be putting out some videos. I am currently in practice, but not able to really see. By the way, Dr. Westman, you and Dr. Sibes recommended the book. I bought it almost as soon as it was published. I'm a member of the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners. I'm about to finish my certification with the Nutrition Network, all on your recommendation and Dr. Sibes' recommendation.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. And Dr. Hampton?
Yeah, I pointed out during the brief presentation that in the video on my YouTube channel, in the notes, you'll be able to find the guidelines for therapeutic carb restriction. Again, it's a way to give your clinician information that'll help you get off medicines and do it safely. That Dr. Sarah Hallberg Legacy course is in the comments as well, and that'll give you a 3 or 4 hour lecture that focuses on reversal. Dr. Rashani Sankhani's book, Turnaround Diabetes, is there. My link tree, which has how to do low carb. My book, Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes, and then of course the information for Dr. Eric Westman, Adapt a Life, the course that he has coming up on type 2 diabetes, and the course that was already, or the class that was already done, which is the type 1 diabetes. You have to get on a wait list, but if you have type 1 diabetes, I strongly encourage you guys to get on that wait list. Join the Type 1 Grit Facebook group and just learn how to get that A1C into a normal range, because if you have an A1C of 8.5, which is the average for type 1 diabetes, you lose 10 to 12 years of life. And what we're trying to do is get you from 8.5 to 5.5, get those years of life back, and have a quality of life that will far exceed where you're at today. So thanks, Kerry, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Hampton. And I just want to shout out my brother and sister, Adam, Carnivore Today, Alia Wells. Love you guys. Thank you so much for putting all this together, doing the fundraising. Alia, Adam helping with everything. They both have awesome YouTube channels as well, so check those out. As well as everyone that we had on here tonight is sharing their inspiring stories on YouTube. So Ashley Carnivore Brothers, Kristen Laura Spath, of course, and the other ones are all linked to below. So if you're watching this and you can't donate to ADS, maybe money's tight, just consider sharing it. You can share it, get the word out there, get it out on social media, because like some of the good doctors said earlier, that's how we're going to change things, is grassroots. We have to do it ourselves. We can't rely on other people to do it for us. So thank you guys all for joining us. I really appreciate it, and have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Beep, beep.